but it's really, really well done.
Yeah, I did read that.
Yeah.
I didn't really know him either. I mean, you know, I've obviously read about him over the years and stuff. The only way I really got to know him is from what was written in the Psychic Warrior book. Really, I think that was a good kind of liaison that David Morehouse had with Mel Riley as they went through the unit.
Somewhere out there, and I'd have to search for it. There was a really interesting old school, maybe, I don't know if it was 70s or 80s, but video of kind of a group chat that involved him and Paul and a couple of the others. So that's the only time I've ever actually seen him, you know, speak and see what his gestures and everything were like. And it was really interesting. The closest person, as far as I know, to him contemporaneously was Laurie Williams and Lynn.
Yeah.
I know a person who knew him quite well and stayed with him. That person keeps pretty quiet. But anyway, he respected Mel tremendously and had said that he really helped him with his viewing a lot. Mel helped this person. I noticed from the archives and stuff that Mel tried ERV, but eventually went back to CRV, preferring that. And his wife apparently was quite a guardian of Mel and wouldn't let people close who Mel or she detected were not going to be the most favorable for Mel's path. So that's all I know about Mel.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Yeah. All I know is what I've read in books and seen of his RV sessions in the archives and bits and pieces.
Yeah, I picked up my copy of Jim Schnabel's book about the original unit and everything, and was impressed at just how much of a bootstrapping he kind of did for the whole military side of remote viewing. You know, him and Skip Atwater basically built the thing from the ground up with, you know, of course, the input from Ingo and Hal and Russell at SRI.
Yeah.
But to convince generals to actually pay for this, I mean, that still, I mean, I'm still amazed that they were able to pull that off, you know.
Now I'm going to go in and grab my papers. Do you want to come with me?
Well, it wasn't easy a lot of the time. You know, when you look back through the papers that they've released now, you can see the conflicts that they had at set periods, and that progressed all the way through the military kind of program's time. Really, you know, it was always having people wanting to kind of kick it to the curb and stuff. But you know, somehow it managed to pull through on quite a few occasions when it was, you know, it was pretty much finished several times. But you know, it goes to show that they must have been, well, I mean, it's in the archives anyway, so you can see it. But you know, they were getting results that were valid enough operationally for them to keep it going. And you know, for an intelligence operation, you know, 20 odd million over 23 years is nothing really.
But it was like the best bang for your buck for intelligence funding you could ever find. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the price of missiles and satellites and stuff nowadays at hundreds of millions, it's just crazy cheap.
Now you can't even launch a satellite for, you know, $20 million.
Yeah.
So.
But we've said this many times in some of the chats we've had previously that, you know, if someone nowadays could get together a budget of 20 million, I think you could do some serious research over a number of years with some of the top viewers and put off, you know, some amazing results and maybe get some answers to some serious questions that we still don't know at this point.
Well, if you know anybody.
Well, I do know multi-millionaires, but I don't think they'd chuck money into they're more entrepreneurs that invest in IT companies.
You would think that with all the billionaires, there would be some and multi-millionaires, but the largest amount that I know of is Ed May has about $8 or $9 million, I think, that he's put into his project, which is the physics domain and the neuropsychic psychiatric domain, neurological domain, and he's got top-notch people, apparently, 2 teams of them, and he doesn't actually do that much with the project, but that's a large amount of money. But of course, it's from Ed's perspective, which is trying to find a materialist basis for what makes remote viewing go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, it would be good to see some funding. And I know way back in the day, Sony did do I can't remember the years, but Sony did a lot of research on ESP and not remote viewing in general, but ESP in general. And they, you know, they did come to the conclusion that there was something there. But at the end of the conclusion, they just couldn't think of any way that they could, being an electronics company, make that into a profitable, datable product. So that's why they abandoned their research.
I have an idea, Daz. I was looking into this company, the D-Wave Computer Company out in Burnaby, British Columbia.
Yeah.
And they're building quantum computer. They've built it. They've sold a few of them. And I looked at the board of directors, and there's an angel investor on the board of directors. And I've been reading because in terms of the future and people that, it was John Vivenko. He said that finance people want to know about the future, of course, banks and to forecast, but also technology people. They want to know when to introduce new technology and the right time. And this would be a key issue, I think, for D-Wave. I mean, it'd be something to discuss, like they might be interested in developing a team of remote viewers. You never know.
Yeah, it would just need someone to put together some kind of, you know, business plan and go to approach people, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what you do at that point.
Yeah, I've dealt with in angel investors in the past because I at one point during the .com kind of boom in the year I think it was, when was it, 2001, I came up with an idea in my dream one night of a new way of internet advertising. So I then whipped up a little design on a computer, on a laptop, managed to get hold of some local angel investors, went to see them, and then within I'd say probably within a day I managed to acquire £1 million worth of funding for it just by showing them it. So I know how to do that kind of thing, but you do need, you know, they do want to see business plans with like 5 years of a breakdown of every part of the business, what you're going to spend, how you're going to hire, and so on and so on.
Well, I don't know how you pay RV people or what kind of resources they need to do their job, but you know, you could approach them. I'm getting an idea. Like you could approach them by saying that this would give them an edge in the industry. And I think this guy, Jordy Rose, he would go for that. You know, like I watched a video about how the two of them, him and the squid developer guy from California, you know, got together, and there's this guy that owns the company is no nonsense. If he likes an idea, he just goes with it, right? And he had $20 million ready to go for building, and they just went ahead and started building. So, you know, this is a good company I would approach. This would be a likely way to approach a company for a good reason with remote viewers, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, but it would, as I said, it would take several months worth of work to put a proposition together to, you know, approach them professionally.
Yeah, so that's not much.
We also have...
It's not much if you've got time to do it.
Yeah, well, I do. Actually, I do. I could research it, and I just might, actually. Yeah.
We have,
Oops, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, we have, you know, Hal Puthoff is working with To the Stars Academy, and of course there's a fair amount of money floating around him, but I just saw a letter yesterday, and Daz, you probably already know this, maybe a lot of other people know it. Hal opted out of any further psi research back in about 1990, so I guess he would not actually pursue that.
Well, they did pay me, and and some viewers to do a project for them.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, that was a paid project. Can
you talk about that at all?
Yeah, I talked about it. Some of them talked previously. I had approach from Tom DeLonge, and I had a meeting with him. He wanted an RV project done, and the moment he told me he wanted an RV project done, I told him not to tell me anymore because I wanted to work the project rather than manage it. So I then got Deborah Lynn Katz to be a project manager on it for me, and we arranged. I can't remember how many viewers it was. Probably about 10 viewers worked it. Carl worked it, didn't you? Yeah, Carl worked it as well. And it was there wasn't much payment for it because I felt it was more for humanity based than anything, because I believe in what they're doing. But yeah, we came up with it was a UFO related target. We didn't know that at the time. We were all blind. In fact, everyone else other than me and Deborah didn't even know who the client was or anything. So I was kind of partially front-loaded because I knew who the client was. But everyone to a T came up with very similar UFO ET related data, which the client was very happy for, and they paid us for. I can't really. Ever since we done it, I do know that Hal and all the others saw it because it was put on one of the Shoot for the Stars servers, and they were all given access to it. So I know they all saw it. The client's very hard, because they're doing the TV series and everything, so they're very hard to get out of. So I don't know how much we can ever disseminate about the data we got, which was quite in depth, because it's probably client proprietary at this stage. But
I gotta ask you, Daz.
It was very interesting stuff.
I gotta ask you, like, what percentage of targets that you work when people pay you are like standard run-of-the-mill, like not exactly space related or alien related or conspiracy related, just kind of like nuts and bolts viewing? Because it seems like I see a lot of your videos and it sort of runs the gamut. So I mean, when you get a target, are you automatically thinking, oh, this is a UFO before you even start?
No, to be honest, I think although it might look like this, I've done a lot. I would say it's a very small proportion of my entire target yield that have been UFO stuff. Like, I had to wait 24 years to do the Roswell target as a UFO. I was waiting for 24 years for someone to give me that one. So I would say it's pretty low. But to be honest, I would say 90% of the work I get offered, I turn down. I get probably 5 to 10 offers a week, but it's really stupid stuff. I think it's stupid stuff anyway. It's not stupid for them, but it's people that are desperate. Like, can you find my cat? Can you tell me how to win the lottery? Can you help me win the lottery? Can you help me find gold? That one comes up quite often. Can you tell me where it's best place for me to move to, or can you tell me how to get my best partner? So I turn all that down because for me that's just all rubbish and insignificant stuff. So I turn a lot down.
Not the best use for RV.
Yeah, absolutely. So I turn loads, and I mean, if anyone else is out there that wanted that kind of work, there is loads of that kind of work out there, but it has no interest for me. So I turn a lot down. And to be honest, most of the work I do now is through crypto viewing, because that's that's like 3 to 4 RV sessions a week with videos and stuff like that. So that's quite in-depth work, and I'd say that's split equally between mysteries type stuff, crypto stuff, and predicting news and events. So that's quite good even split on that one.
So could I ask you, if you're going to approach a client with a proposal instead of them approaching you, what kind of ways to prepare? I guess it might depend on the individual, but are there some standard sort of resources you need to prepare to do a remote viewing for a particular client? Like, I just have no idea what I might, if I was gonna, I'm not going to, but I'm just wondering how you would go about it,
When I'm setting up, if I'm doing like a project, like for example, the one we did for Tom DeLonge, it's slightly different on that one because I wanted to view on that, so I got a project manager involved. But yeah, so if I was involved in a project and I was the project manager, then I would liaise with the client to find out what they wanted, and I would kind of determine if it was a valid remote viewing target, because a lot of them aren't. you know.
Right, like on that video that you showed where the woman evaluates the client and makes sure that it's a viable client that can even do something about the information.
Yeah, because a lot of people want answers to things, you know, that just can't be answered, you know, or they want answer to a hypothetical theory that has no way to feed back on it and stuff. So, you know, there's usually a lot of hand holding with clients where you have to go back and forth and say to them, okay, you want to know this, but what you're asking about is a hypothetical with no way to actually feed back. And if we can't feed back on it, then it's not worth doing it as remote viewing, because, you know, you're not going to learn anything that's going to be validated. So there's lots of hand holding you usually have to go through in a process. And then it's a case of...
I'm wondering if you have to, like, when you do your readings for crypto, do you just do them at home? Like, do you have to go somewhere? I guess you might, if you're looking for a location, you might go. That's what I'm wondering, like, how do you have to travel to a different country sometimes? Like, what would be involved?
No, pretty much where I am sat here, and you can't see it here, but let me show you. I'm going to see if I can move my camera here. Show you my location.
Don't break it.
So here's my area.
Oh, cool.
And for those people that are a bit weird about EMF signals and stuff, there's my wireless router. And I RV here at this desk, and I have done for the last 10 years, 18 inches away from an internet router with no degrading in quality whatsoever. So I do all my RV here, and it's all literally just this desktop.
Well, that's something I could do if I don't have to need to go.
You don't need, you know, that's the good thing about remote viewing. You don't need any kind of facilities, any space or anything like that. You can just
I like that about it. I mean, because I'm on disability, I have limited resources.
Well, I will say that I drop paper now, and I do everything on one of these remarkable tablets, because these are absolutely fantastic.
I just am getting a tablet too. That's cool. Mine's coming on its way.
I used to do hundreds and hundreds of pages of paper. In fact, I've got big reams of it down there. You know, I used to do a ream of paper a month or more. And I've got a scanner here, which I don't use anymore. Thank God for that, because it used to drive me up. I used to do a 20-page RV session. Then you had to spend the next half an hour scanning it in and turning it into a PDF.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. That's crazy.
So these things are just amazing, because you just draw right on it. And then at the end, you just say, okay, email it to yourself or email it to the client, and it's gone.
Let me ask you this, just one more question. John was saying that he does a lot of advanced readings. Like he'll go to talk to someone and they'll ask him about something and he'll have already done a remote viewing on it. Have you ever heard of that? Is that something you do?
Some people were like that. I believe Joe McMonaghy, before he does any live RV on TV, he does it the night before or a period before. And then when he's doing it in the studio, he's just copying what he's done previously.
He's done a trial run, like a rehearsal. That's interesting. That makes so much sense.
I don't do anything. I just go, straight into the RV and just do it.
Different styles. I'm a rehearsal person. Anyways, thank you for the awesome information.
All right.
Hey, Daz.
Yeah, go ahead.
I found that video. Mark, can you hear me, Mark?
I can.
Yeah, I'm going to do a quick screenshot so you guys can see the video, not the live video, but a screenshot. That way you can write down the title if you want. I will also then go ahead and post the link to it in the chat. So I'll just do a quick screenshot so you can see what it is, what channel, and then I froze it at one of the points where Mel Riley's talking. And hearing him talk and seeing him is really interesting. He just comes across as a very, very gentle and kind man. So hold on just a second here.
Yeah, I met him briefly at the 2006 IRVA.
Okay, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's called The Secret History of U.S. Remote Viewing Program, and it's on the thing called the Superhuman Institute. But you can look back, see how young Paul is. And so I don't know what the date of the video or the actual event was, but it was posted clear back in 2014. But it's really, very, very much worth the watching. So I'll stop. Did everybody get what they wanted off of that?
Yep.
Okay, and then I'll stop share, and then now I'll go to chat and post the URL. So anybody interested in seeing Mel can do that. Hold on one second.
Yeah, just from my experience, that looks to be about mid-2000s that was taken or something.
Okay. All right.
I got a
So
chance to look
it's in chat now. The actual link is in chat.
Yeah.
Does anybody know the story of that Superhuman Institute? Because they had some pretty well-produced videos for a little while there, and then dropped off. I was wondering if there's a story behind who did it, what they were doing. Did they have a way to make money from it? From a historical standpoint, how did they get Lynn Buchanan to talk about remote influencing for an hour and a half? Things like that.
I don't know. No.
It sounds like David Wilcock produced it, so there's that.
Thanks. These are the obscure points of RV history, perhaps only I'm interested in. I appreciate you putting up with me.
So I don't know if an official word has come out. I've heard rumors that IRVA has been postponed yet again. I think that they were initially going to do this in October, but now they're talking about more of an online experience. Has anybody gotten any other information?
I think that's all they've released at the moment. Is it's just going to be an online conference because of the obviously the virus and people still being in lockdown and travel not being possible for a lot of people, and the fact that a lot of attendees are generally the older generation as well, that they felt this year it would be better to make it online. So I think that's all that everyone knows at this point in time.
Okay.
If you look, Gail Hussick published the video presentation that she was going to give at the conference. She's published it on Facebook in various sites, saying, I was going to give this, but now it's going to be online. So that's the only thing I've read about it.
Yeah,
presentation.
There's a part 2 coming as well. And also too, I don't know if people know that this weekend is the APP, Applied Precognition Project, online thing for 3 days. Tom McNear is going to speak Saturday on what it was like to work with Ingo. Joe McMonagle is going to do, oh crud, I can't remember. But a lot of it's ARV stuff. But the Joe McMonagle one sounded interesting. I love Tom McNear. And then Sunday morning, they're going to dedicate a memorial to Mel Riley. Paul will be speaking, and I don't know who else. But so, and it's $265 for the full 3 days if you're an APP member, or you can select one of the 3 days for $100. So it'll be interesting because I think a lot of lessons will probably be learned there that will then hopefully be applied to the IRVA conference when they.
Are you going, Russell?
What's that?
Are you going? Are you going to go to the conference?
Well, I was going to go to IRVA, but that was canceled.
No, I mean the one online that you're just talking about, because I looked at it. It looks interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, the bottom line, I don't want to pay $100 just to listen to Tom.
I know it's $100. It's a lot. That's
yeah, if I was going to enjoy a whole day, I'm personally not interested in ARV. I don't know anything about it.
Right.
So paying $100 to listen to Tom talk for an hour, that and my girlfriend kind of said no.
We're the cheap ones here we're the cheap ones who've been doing this for free for like 6 weeks now, and poor Daz. So we're not the ones who are putting down hundreds of dollars here.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. It sounds great, and I'd like to see what Tom has to say. But at the same time, I just can't validate that amount of money on it, to be honest.
I have to say, though, I mean, having gone to a conference or two, it is the time that you spend with the participants, your fellow people there, that I think is the most valuable. So you listen to some good talks, and then, in between sessions or afterwards or something, there'll be a bunch of people just gathering in the hotel lobby or something. And, you'll find out some really cool stuff and learn some things you didn't learn before. So I would love to be able to see somebody replicate that in the online experience, because if they could do that, then yeah, it'd be worth the money to me, you know.
I mean, we do a UK one. We had a UK one last year.
How'd that go?
Did you come last year? You did, didn't you? Yes, you did. Yeah. Carl came to the one last year we had in the UK. It's invitation only. It's only about, well, the first year it was about 8 people. Rick Hilliard organizes them from Australia, but he comes to the UK. Last year we got to 14 people. We held it in the centre of London in a casino. But as I said, it's only invitation only, and it's only people that are using remote viewing for real world scenarios and applications to talk about what they're doing in their research. This year, I don't know, it might be cancelled. It's not been cancelled yet, but it might be. But we were scheduled to have Paul Smith and Angela Smith there, and people from all over. But again, it's only, I think this year we were only allowing 15 people to come to it. But that we might have to cancel that if we don't cancel it. I don't know if Rick's online here. He was earlier. Let me have a look here. No, he's butted out, I think, for a while. We haven't decided yet if cancelling it, but that, I don't know. There is talk that we might do that one online, but as I said, it's not for. It's horrible to say, but it's not for general consumption really, because it's a lot of people like myself and Iris in Paris and stuff talking about our business clients and how we approach businesses and the amount of money we're making from remote viewing. So it's not like for a public consumption thing, but at some point in the future, the UK ones may expand and be a bit more open to everyone.
What about other people? Are there, does anybody know of any remote viewing meetups in your local area? And have you ever been to one? What's the attendance? Have you thought about starting one?
Some people do them. John Noble does one in New York. I know some other people do them in other places around the world. You know, using the Facebook group, it'd be good for people to just start a thread on there and see if anyone's interested to meet up and go off and do your own thing, really.
There was a small meetup in Vegas last year. After the big Sphere event, Crypto Viewing invited all the Patreons to meet up at the bar.
Yeah,
unfortunately, Daz wasn't there, but we did get to meet Ed and the rest of the gang, Dick, Mimi. They were all super nice and fun. That was really interesting because it was all about crypto, but we also got talking about all the conspiracy theories out there that you guys have remote viewed. It was really nice, and hopefully next year or this year there'll be one again where Daz can go so we can meet up. That would be fun.
I will try to make the next one. I had a couple of family deaths and stuff, so it was just the wrong time for me to go to that one. But yeah, I will try to make the next one, depending on what happens with this virus, global
COVID
pandemic thing. You know, we're all trying to survive at the moment, which is a bit crazy.
I will say Vegas was quite expensive, so I'd rather do a cheaper city, or cheaper country even.
There's
who is it behind the phone number?
Oh, this is Dave Quill, Peter Quill. I every once in a while I try to get on with you guys, but I've been on. Yeah, I'm Peter Quill.
Did you say you went to the 2018 URBA?
No, I went to the 2019 Big Swears Road to Ruta.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyways, nice to meet you.
It was
good to meet you all.
Yeah, it was a cryptocurrency conference, but all the guys from Crypto Viewing went along as well, Russell.
There's another one in LA. It seems like LA has more remote viewers than anywhere else in the country. Here in the Bay Area, there's only about three people. But I haven't been to the LA ones, but I think that sometimes they used to get 10 or 15 people.
Is that because of TDS, John? Is that the influence? Is that where TDS was Bay Area, right?
No, TDS was in Carlsbad mostly. Okay. But there's other independents who are in Los Angeles. I have the names if anybody wants to get in touch with them.
Cool.
I have a question about the ARV group. That just quickly, they have this membership where you can sign up to do ARV readings with them. Is anybody doing that or know what that's like?
I think John knows the most about it. You were in APP, weren't you, John?
Yeah, I was in APP for 4 years. I still am a member, but I'm not sure, Rose, what you're referring to.
Well, they say there's a membership you can join,
No,
and they make
cool down. We're gonna go outside and plant some.
hello. They
Sorry.
they make available. Hello.
I think you're talking about Precog Pros.
Well, they post videos, I guess, for exercises to do ARV with a group, and then I guess discuss the results. And I think they're verifiable targets. And I just wondered if anybody was doing that with them or was considering it or knew
Well,
about
just
it.
briefly, there's like 1,000 members in APP, but from what I understand, maybe only 100, if that, are viewing every week. And they do have about 10 groups. You know, I get the emails every morning of the predictions that Marty's indefatigable. I mean, the guy's amazing. He's up at 6:30 every morning with all these groups. So those groups are still functioning and they have targets and you could do them. And they have, you know, someone mentioned that they have the pros. Excuse me, they mentioned that they have the pros that are active, and if there are any pros here, they can talk about that. In other words, people that are viewing with Marty who get paid to view, and there's some stats on that, although they haven't been released for the last year or so because of technical problems.
I wonder if that's the same group of people, because I mean, it does seem like a lot of viewing. Like it seems to me, it looks exciting at first, but then it could get tedious with so much. Although I suppose you don't have to, you know, do every single exercise. I don't know. Maybe I'll email them, see what they say.
Well, just a couple of comments on that. Stefan Schwartz, who's really one of probably the first person who discovered ARV and tried it out, his belief is that you should really just do it as a one-off. You should just do it maybe once or twice and not do it regularly. Now, Marty's well aware, Marty Rosenblatt's well aware that you need to take breaks, and he encourages viewers to take breaks. But nonetheless, those groups are ongoing and they're at it all the time. So there's difficulties. From what you said too, I agree that you really can't just keep doing it all the time. And then there's a whole issue about whether you have 2 targets or 1 target, stuff like that.
I've got a little bit of a different point of view because I avidly play the RV tournament app that was developed maybe a little bit more than a year ago. And I've been number 1 twice this year. Now my regular viewing and my ability to pick out a gestalt of a single image has suffered, but I've gotten really good at discerning between 2 images. I made $10, so I'm an RV professional. Do any of you, have you ever tried RV tournament? It's fun.
I've tried them all pretty much, but so do you have much displacement, and what's your success rate? That's great that you're number 1 on that list.
So I was number 1 for January and April, and then another user of ours in the Reddit also was number 1 overall for a while. So we have a few people who really are following it avidly. My displacement was awful when I was relying on a more visual or traditional method. But when I went to focusing on doing an ideogram and emotion feeling, something kind of like what Gary Langford was doing in 1986 with a visual bit, but mine was just a written Ingo style ideogram, but kind of with like an S2 or S4 level impression to follow, you know, and sort of repeat the target number, do an ideogram, look for a first impression. I would do that and then match it against, they have a text description mode. And I found that when I'm matching my idea and my feelings against a text description, my displacement really improved. And then it was more about the adequacy of the descriptions that caused problems. And I'm sorry for screaming monkeys in the background.
Do you have statistics, like have you broken the 80% barrier that Marty and I and a lot of others have been trying to achieve? And if so, how many viewings have you done?
No, I mean, I've done more about 160 viewings, and I'm still very much a baby and not professionally trained. So every time I stop and change my technique, I've noticed that things change. Like if I start to introduce visuals again, I start to get displacement again. So I've kind of realized, at least for me, it seems like training different muscles gets different results. But I have integrated them and increased my rate. To win, the bar was at about 66% this last month, and when I previously won, it was about 69%. So I'm happy with that as somebody who's learning. But I'd be interested to see if matching against text descriptions, I don't know if there's been much research on that versus doing the images and doing like self-judging or having somebody else judge and target scoring. I think that initial impression of what you feel is really valuable.
Just a couple more points, if I may. That's great that you get 65 to 69%, if I heard you correctly. That's pretty high, actually, for on a long-term basis. And just in case people are interested and haven't heard, you know, Julia Mossbridge also has an online precog trial where you can go in and keep stats, and she also uses basically ideograms. You can use your ideograms to try to get accuracy there. So it's a lot simpler than Ed May's system, you know, which also achieved very high results. But Julia's is user-friendly, it's online, it's Julia Mossbridge precog. That's in addition to what, of course, APP and other groups are offering. So now I'll shut up.
I can add a bit to the ARV thing there, in fact, because I just had a project that literally came live. What date is it? We're in May now, aren't we? Yeah, so it's finished today. So I can share this with you guys if you want. It's a crypto viewing one. In fact, Carl was one of the viewers on it. She's one of our paid ARV viewers that worked the project. Let me share my screen here a sec. I'm not sure, John. I'm not sure if I got you to look at this one, because you've looked at and did some analysis on some of these for us. So can you guys see my screen okay here?
Yes.
Yes, yes, it's good.
Okay, so this was a crypto viewing target, and essentially the target was to see if between the months of February the 1st and April the 30th, if gold per ounce would go over its all-time high. And we're using them. We started off with our ARV project of using ARV with two, you know, one picture for one outcome and one picture for another outcome. But we were getting so much displacement with the viewers describing two pictures that we're using an approach that essentially John here introduced me to, where essentially we have one picture that's chosen, and then if they describe anything else, then that is essentially the other outcome. And that's given us much less displacement. I would say it's probably reduced the displacement by 50 to 70% on everything we're doing. And this one literally just come live today, because, you know, we've just passed this date now, and the prediction that the remote viewing made is a correct prediction on this. So let me see if I can go through it a bit here. I'll just go past this background stuff here. So this was the target we chosen, and this was the target chosen if the price per gold per ounce does not exceed its all-time high during that time period. If the price did go above its all-time high, then the viewer would describe anything else. That's what we set as the target. And this is some of the session data here. You might not be able to see it too well at this size on the screen. So that's one viewer there. Then there's another viewer's data there. Another viewer's data there.
Yeah, not seeing a lot of correspondence.
Another viewer's data there. Another viewer's data there, and so on. So there's the viewer's data. And then we did, I'm not sure if John worked this one, he probably didn't, because I have got John because it was his approach to do some analysis on this. But I'm not sure he did on this one. It might have been just me on this one as the person that did the analysis. So then we had the viewers down on this column here. I don't know if I can enlarge this. Probably not, actually, not full screen. If I go and full screen, I can enlarge this to show you.
So did you judge this, Daz, or did somebody else?
I judged it in this case, but we've done 3 or 4 attempts on this now using gold and for Bitcoin. I'm using this approach. We've used it 3 times now, and all 3 times that we've used it, months in advance, we've got correct predictions. So it's worked 100% for us using this approach. Whereas the normal ARV approach for us was a bit spotty because there was so much displacement. So here's the viewers here, and we mark what kind of contact they get, whether it's low, medium, or high. and then I put an X if it matches the A target, which is the picture target, or if I think it matches anything other than the A target. And on this one, we had a really high one there for one remote viewer. And we had 1, 2, 3, 4 medium scores on this and only 3 lows. So we scored this as we said that our conclusion on this was it would be most probable that it would be the picture target and it wouldn't go above its all-time high. But because there were more mediums than there were highs, we said that, you know, you could also make it a pass on this if you didn't want to bet on this in any way. So we were saying we were confident that we were accurate, but, you know, it's slightly on the edge here. And yeah, that one just came, you know, that one, the dates for this has just literally come through because we just now approached May instead of April. And it didn't, in that time period, it didn't go above its all-time high. So the data on that was accurate.
Cool. Wonderful. That's great.
Yeah, as I said, your approach that you gave us, I've run it 3 times now. It's so much more, so much less displacement on it. And all 3 times we've used it now, we've got 100% track record of getting accurate data and predictions.
I'm really happy to hear that because, as you know, I've sort of been promoting this for about 5 years now, and there hasn't been all that much work done on it. We did some actually 10 years ago, and you can use either emotions or a single photo. So I think you'll get more attention to this than anybody else because you and crypto viewing are in the news and stuff, and this is great to hear.
And it's good as well because, you know, the people we're giving this information to, and, you know, I've got lots of people responding to us from the crypto teams and stuff, you know, they are actually going out and they are actually actioning this data and using it in the real world to save and make themselves money.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful.
Let me ask you something if I could. Back around the time of the Super Bowl, what, February of this year, I saw one group post to the Facebook page, and I think it might have been one that Deborah was part of, but they used ARV for the game, of course, but they had audio clues instead of just an image. Has anybody tried doing that? We did it once with at the Ryan RV group and had some really amazing success with it. Who has used something other than images to do ARV?
They've used videos. That was done back in the SRI days. I know Lynn Buchanan did an experiment on Irish radio, I think, with 30,000 people where they had sounds that people were going to hear for feedback. Yeah. So I think these have all been tried to one degree or another, but it's a question of how much they've been tried and how successful they've been and if there are statistics for them.
We did use them in the early days when we did trials with you, John, as well. Didn't we use it in emotions? We were looking at emotions at teams at the end of the games and stuff.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's right. I remember that one.
Yeah, in 2007, we did a series after the 2006 series. This 2006 series was quite successful with 3 viewers, and we sort of limited the variables. We tried different variables in 2007 with Daz and about 7 other viewers, and the results were not as good, but we learned a lot about which variables you don't want to put into the mix.
Yeah. Cool. I think it would be helpful for someone to write a book on how to judge ARV results, because I think that having done it myself, I mean, I saw what you did, John, at AppFest several years ago, and that was extraordinarily helpful for me. But I think that, you know, there's a little bit of wiggle room when you're a judge and going through those results and saying, I don't know, this might be pass, it might go this way, it might go that way. It seems that there's a lot of subjectivity in that.
Yeah, well, when Daz asked me if I would take a look at one of the first ones they did here for crypto, and Daz used his system, and I used the TARG or SRI scale, which is used on APP to a great extent, where 3.5 is a passing grade, and but you also want 2 points difference if you're using 2 photos. So I agree, there's an awful lot of subjectivity, and Marty, I think, is the expert on that, having been at this for 15 years, but we've all experienced that subjectivity. And Joe McMonagle, who takes part at the APP ARV, as you know, he also comments on that factor and has his own way about approaching ARV when done at a conference.
Just in the spirit of correcting the record, I might have been misunderstood. Since I was doing the technique I mentioned for RV tournament, ARV, I've been at about 65%, but overall I'm much lower because I had a lot of fumbling and missteps. So I had 55% over 170 odd trials, which is nothing burger. But just didn't want to make myself seem better than I was there. Sorry to interrupt.
Just as a point of fact, just one more fact on this. Go ahead, Rose. Deborah, sorry.
No, you can call me Rose. It'd be great. Thanks.
Sorry, I thought you would be your first name.
Yeah. Okay, so just I was had a question. Now I've lost my train of thought. Oh yes. Would the complexity of the question affect the accuracy in ARV? Like, say you ask a more simple question, would you be more likely to get an answer on a regular basis than if you ask more complex questions?
Well, just briefly on that, I mean, what I was taught way back 20 years ago is that you only ask one question during a remote viewing tasking, one question, and get the answers on that. Now, that varies a lot. People now try to put in other aspects, but you know, that was the most successful remote viewing business.
Keep it simple is what I'm thinking. You get more
keep
accurate.
it simple is stupid. But for ARV, it usually doesn't come up as a question of simple or complex. It's usually the outcome or a specific yes or no choice. Yeah,
but a yes or no question can be easy or it can be hard, or, you know, depending on the detail you're asking for in your yes or no.
That's true.
Well, for instance, something like whether gold is going to be a certain price, that's pretty complex of a question. There's a lot of math involved in that. Whereas if you're just asking if the cat's alive or dead, that's a bit different. It's a little more simple, I think, isn't it?
Well, I think, yeah, you're raising the issue of how you task something, and that's super critical in both regular remote viewing and also in ARV. That's for sure.
Yeah, interesting. I'm just wondering if see, that's maybe something that they're looking at in this study with people doing all this ARV, would be the statistics on those kinds of questions of simplicity and complexity and what gets better results. I might be interested in getting involved in that. It looks like it might be interesting.
Well, let me put in a plug for Marty. I mean, Marty could use all the help, all the volunteers. I mean, there's 1,000 members, but very few staff. And I worked hard with Marty for 4 years, and it was very rewarding, but we had a difference of vision, like he wants to sort of, I guess, expand it democratically. And while that's important, I also learned from Ed May, you work with the best viewers, at least for some projects. So we had a difference of philosophy, but Marty's amazing. I totally respect him. He needs help. People who know statistics or people who want to help in any way, get in touch with Marty.
And for me, this would be good practice because I haven't done much, and it would be a little bit more simple than trying to do a sort of a big RV project, and to just do ARV is good practice, I would think.
Have you been in touch with Marty or APP?
Not yet. I just was looking at the website yesterday.
Yeah, well, give it a try. I think you'll find it interesting.
Okay, neat. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, ARV. I was a bit skeptical of ARV, and I still am to some degrees. But the unitary ARV, we're getting actionable data results with. So I'm quite pleased with that now. I don't think it works with the two picture targets, and I tried different combinations. Although I did manage to get some really good results by matching targets. So I was picking targets that were matched in entropy, size, shape, and the time that they were constructed. But I was leaving enough details in stage 2 tactile stuff that I would look for that in viewers' data. So one target, they would be equal size, shape, and kind of dimensions and entropy. But in the viewers' data, I was looking for shape data. So although they'd be equal size, one would be really tall and linear, but the other one would be really squat and round, and the round one would be metal, and the tall linear one would be stone or wood. So I was looking for
you're giving yourself less parameters. Yeah, so you're honing it in. So you want to do that, right? Yeah.
That worked quite well. I thought that worked quite well. But it takes a lot of analysis because you have to discount 90, even though, Carl's one of the viewers on this, even though I put specifics on when you send it to the viewer, you're like, only really concentrate on stage 2 in sketches. The viewer doesn't remember that when they're doing their RV and they go off and they're doing all kinds of bits and pieces. But you're there as an analyst thinking, I'm literally going to chuck 90% of this away. All I want is stage 2 and sketches, because that's the only thing I'm going to analyze it against. But that was a harder approach. John's approach, which has the one target for one outcome, and then anything else from any other outcome, but you're not picking a specific, and you're not entangling a specific picture as part of the process in your mind and in their minds. I think that absolutely wipes out a huge proportion of the displacement for some reason.
Just back briefly on what you were talking about earlier. I'm losing my train of thought here. Oh, about entropy. So for those who aren't familiar, and also I've been doing ARV for 10 years because I have found it fascinating all this time. And I've been able to, I was fortunate to be able to get together with Ed May, who gave us the software in APP from his system, which was elaborate and actually works very well if you're willing to put up with a lot of passes. Anyway, Ed felt that entropy, as defined by the gradient of the pixels in the image, the gradient of the pixels in the image is an inherent target characteristic. And that's what he built his system on, one aspect of the system. But he also went on, for those who may not have heard, to use liquid nitrogen, because that also is a huge entropy change, pouring liquid nitrogen on the ground where an outbounder is and using that. And he initially got terrific results from that, but then they tailed off and I haven't seen any publication about it, so maybe it didn't last. So we can use entropy in an informal sense just to refer to disorder, or you can use it in a technical sense of pixels or of physical entropy. So there's different uses of that term, but they all seem to play in to one degree or another.
Yeah, what I was finding with some of the ARV targets is if I didn't do enough research on them, and I was using lots of things like monuments and structures, and I found that if I didn't do enough research beforehand and I just went with one image and I didn't look around the target first, and then when it came to analysis afterwards, you look around the target because you're looking for feedback against sessions, and you find that there was things like water at the target, especially running water, then that would be a major distraction because there's movement and something about running water at targets that attract viewers more than anything.
Yeah, that's entropy, right? So
yeah. I mean, I equate it to being, because I shoot guns and I've gone hunting and stuff, and I equate it to being like being a hunter. When you're a remote viewer, you're out there kind of looking for the target kind of thing, if you can imagine this. And it's the same as like being a hunter. You're a hunter. You're in the middle of a field. There's just loads of trees, and the thing that catches your eye, that focuses you in, is movement. As a hunter, the slightest bit of movement, you're there instantly because there's a change. There's a change in the landscape view in front of you, and I think it's the same with remote viewing as well. If there's movement and energy, it's like a homing beacon for you.
Have you heard, I read a book by a horseman who is Monochromatic Vision, and he said it makes it a lot easier to hunt because if you're only seeing the gray tones, you see the motion, whereas the color camouflages the motion. Quite fascinating. And he didn't like it. Someone gave him some glasses that allowed him to see color, and he didn't like it. He didn't wear them even.
Talked about entropy. One of the earlier things that, going back to Mel, earlier on in the unit, of course, they were tasked for being like operational security, basically finding, what the Russians could be learning about American units and that sort of thing. So Mel figured out that if you added something peculiar to some of America's more secret resources or whatever, it would help draw off remote viewers from whatever they were looking at. So one of the things he had suggested was put a giant Mickey Mouse balloon inside the missile silo next to the silo. He said that would draw the attention of the remote viewers to the balloon rather than the missile that was right next to it. And there's some truth to that. There really is. I don't think anybody actually did that, but it's a good idea.
Yeah, it might work. I mean, I think it's probably depends on the individual of the remote viewer. If you've got like a remote viewer that's an engineer that absolutely loves missiles, then I think they would hone in on the missile. Yeah. but that's why I'm in my true belief is the idea of remote viewing team, if I could ever accomplish it at one stage, would be to have a physician or doctor or nurse, an engineer, a scientist, and an artist. You know, that combination all on one team of really hardcore remote viewers, I think would be able to nail pretty much anything out there possible.
Putting a Mickey Mouse balloon in a missile silo sounds like something Daz would have done in his younger days based on the stories from these last few weeks. But if you decide you want a pharmacist on that team, you let me know.
It's like, what if we turned Banksy loose inside a missile silo, right? Nobody would ever see the missile.
I've been inside a few missile silos, but yeah, not with a Mickey Mouse balloon. Yeah, I might have to, if I can find them at some point, I'll find the pictures out of me doing the underground bases. There are some online somewhere, and there's some videos on YouTube, but I can't remember where they are. But yeah, that's interesting stuff. Okay, we've got some questions. What's one of these questions? Daz, have you ever remote viewed lion beings that possibly protect gateway portals? No, never heard of that at all, to be honest. Anyone else out there heard of any lion beings?
I've heard of these come up in alien UFO lore, but it's one of these sort of sketchy things there. It's I don't know, it's like dolphin beings, and I don't sort of put too much veracity in them personally, but that's my take on it.
Yeah. No, I haven't come across them, to be honest. And I've seen or read about quite a lot of strange creatures out there in the universe. Bear with me a second. Let me see.
Who's your favorite alien that you've remote viewed, Daz? Out of all the aliens you've seen, which one has been your favorite?
Oh, to be honest, I haven't seen that many. There was the Roswell stuff, which I haven't put online yet. I'm going to do this weekend. I'm going to put. I did a project for Farsight on Roswell a couple of years back, and hopefully, if I can get it together this weekend, I'm going to put my raw video and paper RV sessions for that online. They were interesting, the Roswell ones. I saw some at Area 51, and the only other time I've seen something, I think, because I've done the Moon and Mars a few times as well, but I didn't see, and I didn't actually. I'm not sure I picked up any aliens on the Moon or Mars. I think I just focused on craft and technology. The only other time was when I looked at the Phoenix Lights project, and it felt like there were alien beings inside there. The most interesting ones, though, probably the Roswell. Well, no, probably the Area 51 one, because there was an artificial. In that, I kind of had the impression that there was an artificial intelligence inside this metal ball about that big, and it was a sentient artificial intelligence. It's very hard to describe. Yeah, so that was probably the most interesting one. But that felt like it was a prisoner of some kind, or that they didn't know they had it there, or yeah, felt very strange that did. But that would be the most interesting one, I think.
Awesome.
But I haven't seen that many, to be honest. I haven't done that many UFO targets in the past. It'd be nice to do more, actually.
Did you see any on the Iapetus, one of the moons of Saturn?
No, I don't think I did. Bear in mind, that's probably some years ago now. I don't remember seeing any, to be honest. No.
I have a question.
Okay, yeah.
Hi, this is Nancy McBreen. I'm very interested, Daz, in what you saw inside the metal ball, not saw, but felt, or whatever, the artificial intelligence. Did it try to communicate with you or vice versa?
I think I initiated the contact when I was kind of like probing. To be honest, it was a couple of years ago, so I can't remember it in full, but the video for it and the paper sessions are online, and they're on my remote view YouTube channel, so you can
You said it felt like it was in a cage, or perhaps they didn't know it was there.
Yes, it felt like it was like in storage or securely held in some kind of secure containment room.
If it conveyed that emotion to you or that perception to you, it feels to me like it would have wanted to communicate if you wanted to go back.
It did kind of. We did have this very limited, communication. Me probing it and knowing it and getting that information. I'm not sure I could call it would it be communicative? I don't know. I'm not sure I'd call it communication. It felt like it was aware that I was there probing it.
Yes, that's what I'm getting, and that it was excited about that, and that I don't know if you'd want to, follow up and have an exchange with it, but I'm sure it would be willing.
It would definitely be worth looking into, because this last few weeks, in some research I'm doing, I found out that when Paul Smith did a remote viewing session at the moon for Ingo Swann in '96, I think it was, he saw or he encountered an AI on the moon. And I also have some other information from some remote viewing that Ingo Swann did in 1999 that hasn't been released to the public yet, where he also encountered an AI on the moon as well. So I've got, it's the first time I've found that 3 different people were talking about an artificial intelligence with some kind of real intelligence and sentience to it that people are having a conversation with. Yeah,
it would be very interesting, because I would think that the ultimate goal would be to have an AI that also had some emotional range.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, thank you.
Anyone else got anything you want to chat about or discuss or say?
Yes, if I may. With some of the viewings that are coming up lately in respect to particularly COVID and some of the future events that we're viewing, some of them have been viewed or classified, if you like, as quite traumatic and possibly not for general release at this time, due to a number of factors, various platforms that they may be on, not the right content to deliver maybe. Some of this, what could I call it, deeper information. Is there any plan or portal where that is due to be released, possibly? Because obviously we've got our people that, for this, it's quite critical information. Obviously not for general publication. It's not for blowing out of proportion. It's quite useful. I mean, I myself, I'm a retired police officer now. So for me, it's the analytical part of my thoughts, is wanting to know the depth of the information for various purposes. So what would you say? I've heard Dick talk of a similar issue. For example, he's wondering what to release, what not to. What's your views on that overall? Daz, please.
It's a hard one, because some of the stuff's because it's predictive stuff, hasn't happened yet, and it seems to be a bit esoteric as well. I'm very conscious that we don't have feedback for it, so I'm very reticent about putting it out there as proper information for people, because I guess the others feel the same. To be honest, we haven't had a conversation about this properly, but I guess as a collective we don't want to get into the situation of being like some of the people out there that put fear mongering stuff. We don't want to call people to panic and stuff. Yeah. Like we were getting some, in June of last year we were getting some really strange stuff, because we were looking at events in the near future to see what would happen, and it would be like big football games and stuff like this. And we were looking at them into the future, and I don't know why the guys started tasking them. I didn't ask them this, but they did. And none of these events were happening, and we all we were getting in our data was like soldiers on the streets, people in camps, and all kinds of really strange stuff, which is, you know, which is essentially what we're going through now with the viral lockdown and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the time, you know, this was June of last year, and we were looking at this data and we were thinking, it doesn't make sense. What's going on? And, you know, when you have no context to it, and you know, you've seen stuff that's happening in the future, but you have no context and no way to verify it, it's hard to put it out. Like at the moment, we're getting some very strange data, and I have to wonder if there's some kind of, what's the word, possible contamination at the tasker level or something. I don't think there is, but I'm having to wonder on this at the moment, because we're doing some sessions at the moment trying to look at things in the future again, and all the data we're getting through at the moment again is just totally strange. Just, you know, we're trying to look at normal events, but the data that's coming through is just like so sci-fi out of this world, and I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on here? But at the same time, like, I just don't feel it's right for me to say, put that out there and say, well, this is what we got, have a look at it. But the rest of the guys might do that. I don't have any real control in what they do and where they're going with it within crypto viewing. I'm essentially just like a paid. I'm afraid. I mean, I guess I could have a say if I said something, but I'm just paid. I'm just a paid employee. You know, I get paid to remote view.
In a way, I mean, yeah. With such information does come great responsibility.
Yeah.
And then you have to decide whether the general public can handle that if it was ever to release to the general public. But then we're almost in the situation where accusing the US government of withholding information for decades and decades, and the frustration is that, you know, why not tell us? And they'll say the same sort of thing. Well, you know, there's various reasons, and national security, blah blah blah.
Absolutely.
So it's almost you know, going around in circles. But what I wondered is there among some of the data, is there any major, has anything come up within major shifts in power within, you know, global power? Or I suppose it's also relevant to how far you've actually viewed. But so I'm getting information, I'm getting things about global power shifts and some crazy information that affects certain areas of the globe, and then further on than that, some really quite distressing things for geographical areas as well. So hence that, obviously, as you said, it's unverifiable. But then when you wonder if other people are getting similar lines of information, you know, could we be receiving similar or the same things?
It's very possible. I mean, if you're getting that kind of stuff, then I would say that's very similar, or probably the same as the kind of stuff we're getting. And I don't, you know, I'm not trying to tease you guys or anything with this.
No.
I'm trying to act responsibly with it. I feel, because, you know, you get to have a certain track record of pretty decent remote viewing, and then if you do put stuff out, there are a certain amount of people that just take everything you say absolutely for granted, 100%. And it doesn't, you know, although you try to warn people, it doesn't work like that.
Well, it's not a circus. This isn't a circus, is it? It's not about blowing things out of proportion, or, you know, it's very serious.
Yeah. So and as I said, we're getting. I mean, I did. You know, I was up all night last night because we do the crypto viewing on a Thursday night, and I'm the loser in the scenario because everyone else is US. Yeah. And because I'm in the UK, we have to go to their time zone rather than mine. So we do the recording at 1:30 in the morning, my time. So from 1:30 to 5 o'clock in the morning, this morning, I was essentially Zoom chatting, videoing, remote viewing sessions. So we all have our remote viewing sessions up. And you've probably seen the videos. The guy goes, okay, pick your best bits. We all pick a bit that we think might be interesting, and then he tells us what the target is, and then we all like review our sessions afterwards, you know, after we've seen it and stuff like that. So we do all this live on video, and we were doing it last night, and last night as well we had you might I don't know if you know this person, but there's this female viewer from probably about 8-10 years ago now called Hitomi and she worked on a video at HRVG called Hitomi and the God Particle. So she joined us last night as well. She's been quite ill for a number of years because she helped do the Fukushima clear outs with the people, and she ended up getting several different various forms of cancer and stuff. So she had to back away for a while she had treatment.
She was quite active before that, wasn't she?
Yes, yes. So she joined us as well last night. So there were 4 viewers: me, Dick. She was doing it as well. Who else was doing it? And Edward, and all 4 of us all 4 of us have really strange data, which all coincided. But at the same time, it's stuff that you kind of think yourself. You just have to sit back and think yourself, what can you do with this? You can't really put this out there because it's a bit alarmist, and you might just all be going off on some flight of fancy because it's not proper feedbackable remote viewing at this stage. So there's just I don't to answer your question, I don't know if they'll put it out. I don't know what their plans are and if they'll put this out there. I guess they stuff we did last night they might put out there. And essentially the one last night was, can I say what it is? I think I can see what it was. In a few weeks before, Dick or someone had some remote viewing sessions where they essentially felt that they saw some kind of object in Earth's atmosphere that was doing something
I remember that.
to humans.
I wanted to hear more about that.
So they essentially tasked us all to go back, and I didn't notice at the time, so all go back and have a look and see what the scenario was happening about that and what that was trying to do. But it's not at this stage. It's not feedbackable. The only interesting thing is we all got all 4 remote viewers got pretty identical data, and the tasker was there when it set the target, and he was saying to us, this stuff didn't come from me in my head because I had none of these thoughts of what this data would be in my mind. So although I set the target for you guys to look at it, this isn't from me. But so they may put that live, but as I said, some of the other stuff we've had which shockingly seems to have come true so far with the lockdowns, the economy, the actual terrible state of the the economy, especially in the US. The moves that it does look like the moves are happening towards more of a cashless society, a bit more of a control kind of system against us, all this kind of stuff. So that kind of stuff, shockingly, is starting to come true that we saw quite a few months ago. But there's just a responsibility. So I don't know what they're putting out.
So time will tell, basically.
And we're all individuals as well. Like Dick has his opinions, and he has all these talks with Michael, one of our group. They have very solid thoughts and opinions in one direction. I'm not sure I totally go down that route, and it's the same with all things. Like they believe in certain cryptos that are going to go a certain way. I believe essentially in one crypto, and the other ones are all just a gamble. So we all have our differences of opinion. Sorry, I can't answer it fully. There is stuff. All I can say is there is stuff, but we're trying to be as
responsible.
We're trying to give information out, because if it helps people, like we were saying for months on end before the virus, we were telling people, we were saying stock up, get emergency packs, prepare yourself, make sure you know what you're doing, make sure you've got a bug-out plan and all this kind of stuff. So we're trying to be responsible, but at the same time we're trying not to.
I have a question. Because now I'm already having withdrawals from Patreon, and I'd like to try and keep up with the videos. I'm wondering about the website and if we're going to be talking about that, or I'm a little bit confused because I just joined Patreon, so I don't know what's going on.
To be honest, I'm not the best person to help you because I have no involvement in the technical side of it, other than we've just released a brand new website which has got a fantastic message board system on there, and I'm getting quite into that, so I'm spending all my time answering hundreds of questions a day.
That's the crypto viewing site, the one with all your bios on it, and it has some videos, but they're older.
All the news. the videos, see, dependent on what tier you're paying as a Patreon, that depends how many videos and what videos and how in depth you get to see. So.
Yeah, I noticed, and I was thinking of upgrading to the viewer, and they sent emails to people to cancel their membership and move to the new site. And
Yeah,
they were
we're moving to the new site because for several reasons. Patreon takes quite a hefty chunk of the money. But they also, we were also a bit worried about, because we were putting out some topics that are a bit controversial and a bit conspiracy theory based, and we're talking about remote viewing and the virus and stuff like that. There were websites like YouTube that were stopping and removing people that would talk. At one point, if you mentioned COVID-19 in your videos, they would be deleted from YouTube. So we were worried that action was going to happen to us using the Patreon site, and that's why we ended up building our own essential Patreon system.
So I mean, I went to your site and I couldn't see anywhere where I could join as a viewer. So I don't know how that works.
As you join as a viewer, you would have to email me, and then I would run you through a series of tests.
Okay. So is your email on the Facebook site? How do I email?
My email is Daryl@nethead.com, so it's DARRYL.
Daryl. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna write it down. DA. Okay.
DARRYL.
Yeah.
Then the @ symbol.
At. Yep.
Nethead, spelled NET.
Net. Head as in HEAD.
Without the A, HED. Nethead.
Nethead. Okay.
.com.
.com.
Yeah, and I would put you through a test, and if you pass the test, then we would maybe offer you work. Carl does work for us. She works as one of the viewers, and Darby on here as well. Darby works for us as well on ARV projects.
I just did that test CRV that you put up on Facebook, and I had a ride on Voyager 2, which was very cool. I put the pictures up and I looked at them, and every time I look at them, I'm amazed, because I'm drawing myself standing on top of Voyager, and I love Voyager. So that was the neatest exercise.
Excellent. I'm glad you liked it.
I had my hands, if you look at the pictures, on the railing, as if it was like a railing. If you look at the Voyager, there's this railing at the top, and I could actually have put my hands there if I was actually there. It was the neatest thing. So I'm looking forward to the test.
Well, yeah, you can. I can apply, and I can give you a couple of tests, but we are quite, people do have to be very, very accurate, and they have to provide, very accurate, specific, detailed, but well recorded information as well. So we tend to really only work with people that have been trained in the methods of RV, like something like controlled remote viewing or something, because
I've been training myself a little bit. I've looked it up, and I've started using ideograms, and now I've discovered this Lynn. He talks about the language of ideograms, so I'm getting interested in learning about how my own subconscious is going to create a language of ideograms. So I'm sort of feel that I'm being sort of drawn into this, and I feel just a natural kind of, this is kind of what I do. It's what I've done sort of all my life, but I just never had a sort of really good system to make it more accurate. And this CRV improves accuracy.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
Makes it a more reliable process.
Yeah.
And like you say, verifiable. So I am totally into that. And I just feel it's a bit of a practice thing, like they keep saying. A lot of the viewers are saying just practice. And I don't want to overdo it. which I did with the tarot cards. I read myself into oblivion. So I'm taking my time with this, and I really enjoyed that exercise with the Voyager, because I didn't think that I had gotten anything. I thought it was just, I had a total miss. So when I discovered that I had it hit, it's an amazing feeling. And I know the remote viewers, the experienced ones that I'm watching on videos, they say, I mean, every time it's an amazing thing when you get those details and when that information comes. And it never really, it doesn't seem right until later when someone else or you've analyzed it a bit. It's an interesting process, and I'm intrigued. I'd like to pursue it. So I'd like to give it a shot, you know?
Yeah, send me an email. We'll give you a test.
All right, I will. Cool.
I have a question. I was actually interested kind of philosophically, and for anyone that currently participates in remote viewing, what do people see as the future importance and relevance of remote viewing? And I'm not saying this in it's not a disparaging question, because I'm here and I've been here for a couple of weeks and I love what everyone is doing, but what is the future importance of this? I hear people wanting to make sure that the field maintains its lifeblood and integrity as the kind of originators are aging. So I'm just curious, like, why is this important for the future of humanity? Sorry, big question.
Anyone want to answer
that?
that?
Evolution. I would say evolution. This is the evolution of humanity happening right before your very eyes, in my opinion. This is where people are going. I think there are children that just freak me out, how talented they are just naturally, this intuitive vision. And people don't pay enough attention to it. I feel like as a child, I wish that I had someone that I'd noticed. I feel like I've missed out a lot on the journey. So that's my opinion anyway.
If I can just say something there, this is the evolution of mankind, all right. But if you make yourself a target and use your skill to make contact with yourself at your deeper level, and you can put in messages to improve your life, improve your job, improve your prospects, to manifest your future. Everything is recorded in the subconscious mind. So if you work on yourself, you will achieve most of the, if you listen to any of the scientists, they'll tell you that, you know. So this is a great way of achieving your best potential by working on yourself. And of course, you'd have to be at a high level and understand how to, you know, to make contact at a deep level with yourself and with other targets.
That's fantastic advice.
Yeah.
Fantastic advice. And I have to agree with you, but I also have to, I would qualify that, because having been on the journey, sometimes, you know, you want to improve yourself, and you're going to have to face the fact that it's not going to be easy. That doesn't mean your life is going to be easier because you go on that journey. You know, you prepare yourself, you know, if you want to really realize your potential, it's not going to be necessarily a rose garden, but in my opinion, it's worth it, you know? You can improve,
Alexis?
you can improve your life. Sorry, you can improve your life, you know? So if the more you do this, the more you try, the more contact you make with your deeper self, that's where the improvement comes from.
So Alexis, that's an excellent question. One thing I'll just throw in here, Ingo's perspective is along the lines that these are native, natural abilities that are intrinsically within the fabric of our very being, and that over the course of whatever's occurred throughout the eons, galaxies, solar systems, space wars, any other drama, that for various reasons that we've shrunk our space and our abilities have actually atrophied or devolved. So he didn't see us as some little seed that was going to evolve. He saw us as beings of some sort of magnitude that then, for whatever reason, became diminished. So one good example, I don't know if anybody here, and I understand fully the controversies involving Farsight, but their Death Traps video had one scene in it that I have actually and factually seen across a number of my clients, where they were shocked, the viewer was shocked when they realized that some element of somebody or other that's manipulating or controlling recognized this being that was coming in and how huge they were, and through a process brought them down to being small. So on the balance side of, well, we just start out as this little something or another and evolve, I just like to put in the consideration, what if we have always been and currently are beings of magnitude, but have somehow shrunk down. So one example, like for instance, if you were playing hide and seek with a 4-year-old, you would pretend not to know where they were, or pretend that, you couldn't find them, in order to say, let's play a game, because it would be no fun if you just walked over there and said, okay, there you are, they would cry and you would get bored. So I always like to put Ingo's point of view, the reason being because whatever Ingo knew and believed worked. It worked, and with the cooperation of all the people. I mean, he credited hundreds of people. It never took full credit. He even tried to, set aside the term the father of remote viewing. He was very humble in this respect, but he knew something, and when they brought him into the situation they were trying to develop, what he knew had enough effectiveness that it created remote viewing. And again, that was with other people. So just give fair consideration to the possibility that in our present state, and maybe that's just the filter or the restriction of the body, for instance, but we might be a much grander beingness than we can even at this time imagine that we are. So there.
And I think that that's a really interesting perspective. I wrote in the top of the chat, but we're all busy chatting about everything else, that I was re-watching or re-listening to some of the previous Friday videos. And one topic that kept coming up was that there was a sense among at least some people in the RV community that humanity is not mature enough to necessarily handle not necessarily remote viewing, because everyone encourages people to do that, but that they're not mature enough to handle the information that might come from remote viewing if they don't go through the path of learning it themselves. So I was curious, because to me that perspective felt a little paternalistic. And if we are these immense beings, is it that we're not mature enough to handle it? Or, I mean, is it that there's an evolutionary path that you have to go through that makes that the correct way to approach it? Or is it that people, because we are trained into materialism and reductionism, that's right, why people can't handle it? Because I'm very curious about things, and I don't at this point feel like I have any particular skill set, but I'm working on it. But it's interesting to me that people are like, oh, well, people can't handle it. Whereas to me, it just seems that people believe what they're trained that they can believe. And I did see that, I don't know if she's still on here, the Blackbird woman had joined again. And I was also interested in, I don't know her, so from her name and from things that she was wearing last week, that there might be some indigenous perspectives that could also inform that if you're raised in a certain tradition, that you can be open to these things. And I don't see why that would be different from what is happening to humanity, that people are being trained to believe that these things are not possible.
Yeah.
I think there's, oh, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, Russ.
No, go ahead, Gran.
I've been thinking about this quite a lot, because I think Alexis, it was you or somebody else who brought up a similar question on a previous chat about what's the future maybe for RV and children or something. But, you know, remote viewing, especially controlled remote viewing, isn't that different from some meditative practices, especially like Theravada Buddhist practices. And I've been researching into that a lot because there's a lot of language that's 2,500 years old that describes elements of perception that I feel might be relevant or interesting in the CRV process. But their CRV is a lot like some meditative paths backwards, as far as we're sort of starting from an assumption of non-dual and building up small impressions and then getting more complicated impressions and then getting to the point, hopefully, where maybe somebody could name what something is. So the movements of little green things and rustling of wind becomes trees on a branch, and then, you know, leaves on a branch of a tree, and then you can say that's tree. Whereas some of the meditative practices might start with a tree and then try to look at the leaves and the movement and then just the impressions and the feelings and the sensation, and then finally kind of nothing, and then being non-dual. So I feel like RV, and especially CRV, should appeal to meditators. It's certainly been therapeutic for me. I have attention deficit disorder, and doing CRV has helped me to spend more time inside my head in a way that just, it kind of was an entry point to meditation for me, because it was kind of like meditation with a point, and instead of just meditation for meditation's sake, like, you know, I was trying to sort of solve something or figure something out, and there's a goal, and so that sort of helped me. I feel like there could be a future for RV or CRV or derivatives, even maybe a little bit mainstream, if it goes in and it can be recognized as therapeutic or have a meditative value to it. And certainly some of those meditative disciplines have danger points too. I mean, some of them are supposed to lead to full awakenings and enlightenment. And there's nothing that destroys a worldview more than deciding that, like, you're not really you because you're everything and everyone, right? But the general public eats that stuff up. So I think there's an opportunity to appeal to people from meditative traditions and have some cross interest there, and with people who are already a little bit open to doing weird stuff with their mind. And I might try to write that up in an article for the RV Community Magazine or something like that, eventually, in a way that's a little more focused. But what do you think about remote viewing as therapy? I think Ed Riordan enjoys RV because it helps him to learn about the world. And he's released videos saying that he'd like there to be schools that, you know, use RV as a learning tool for education's sake, and not just because we're trying to really find answers to questions that are really critical, but to experience it. I think that meditative, that self-actualization, that sorry, I'm walking around outside and I'm losing my breath. I feel like there's an opportunity there for RV besides, you know, when is America going to get destroyed and things like that.
Well, you know, Gran, one of the things, and I'll back up just a minute and finish addressing Alexis. If you want to go literally verbatim what Ingo, in his core beliefs up to a certain point, I obviously don't know what he thought past a certain point, but he considered a very literal scenario where wonderful expanded beings, possibly us, possibly the faces and the names I'm looking at here, came here to Earth on a function of bringing, kind of restoring civilization, or if you will, and that the opposition to that, whoever they may be, had some pretty heavy impact, and that once you get in, you're probably a little bit cloudy, get the dust knocked off, remember what your original inclinations or purpose line or mission, if you will. So he had a thing that involved an active opponent. Some of the quote unquote weird stuff that Daz's group is discovering, I look at it and I go, might not be so weird. So, you know, a lot of people don't want to get into the concept of the spiritual war. I don't blame them. I wish it wasn't true. I don't want to believe it. It doesn't benefit me in any way. It's just come to a point where I think it is, there's some actuality to it. You know, in a Western sense, in the New Testament, you know, Jesus says, be as gentle as a dove. but be as wise as the serpent simultaneously. Lots of love and light, lots of benevolent, lots of, you know, new age people are absolutely amazing in that regard, but they have no tolerance for confronting opposition and enemy. And Ingo did a lot of work for a long time learning telepathic interface, telepathic defense, if you will. So as far as what you're saying, Ingo just considered that we were on a path of, through some interference, literally forgetting who we were. And that once we get in here, we can kind of remember and then go to work. And then the thing you were saying, Grin, that really hits me and agrees with a concept I've been developing. You know, if your perception is filtered or occluded or fouled in any way, you know, God's self or source or whatever you want to call it could appear before you. And if your glasses have smudges on them, you're not even going to see that. So when you talked about the old school practices, Ingo was very fond of Patanjali, who talked about the cities literally traveling clairvoyance, which could translate to remote perception or remote viewing, if you will. So the therapy aspect, in fact, my whole goal going forward in remote viewing is the hope that I can learn, when am I filtering? When am I throwing an AOL? When is memory affecting me? So I would love to have clear perception. I'd like to just look at anything, even something in my room, and see it as it is, you know? So I agree with that, as you call it, you know, therapy or whatever, because if we can clear our perception, then whatever we see, we're going to be able to communicate effectively with. And in the end, you know, that's going to make the world better for everybody. And then as a side thing, while I'm trying to learn this business of hopefully clearing my perception, you know, I'd like to use it wherever I can to be of service to others. So anyways, there you go.
That sounds very complicated to me. It's very interesting, but it's quite simple in my mind. The other guy earlier was saying, I think it was Grin, was saying in his head, you know, when I get things in my head. But where the HeartMath Institute have done sort of a lot of experiments and research with the power of the heart. And the heart does an awful lot more than just pump blood around the body. And if we, in a meditative state, and I teach a little course on this as well, that if we sit in our own presence and just allow ourselves to develop from the heart, so take your thoughts from your head into your heart, you will strip away a lot of the stuff that Russell was just talking about. You mightn't like what you find about yourself, but you'll strip it away and at some stage come to be at peace with yourself. And it's when you're in that state then that when you recognize yourself, that you can put information in to manifest your future and make things better for yourself. And that's where I come from in this, is that I do that. I try every day. I live in the state of I do CRV, so control remote viewing. I live in that state. I use it every day. I'm aware of a lot more than I was aware of 10 years ago. So I'm always trying to push myself forward through my deeper self, because when we were born, we were molded into the people that we are today. And we're trying to break all those things that our grandparents and our parents told us that they were taught, and everything else. So for me, I want to expand out into the universe to receive everything, that all the information that's coming in from the universe, to make me that better person. Thank you.
Does that answer your questions?
That was very
Yes, that's wonderful. I asked a lot of questions last week, so I'm trying not to do that this time. But
No, go
yes,
ahead. That's what we're
no, I
here.
appreciate all feedback, but I threw another question in the comments, or not question, statement.
Okay,
So you
the
can
Q
always reject.
stuff. To be honest, I've seen some videos on the QAnon stuff, but I haven't looked into it or followed it in any way. To me, it looks like it's
Yeah, if you read what I said, it's not actually a question about Q at the end.
okay. You said you're fascinated by it. Yeah. Edward's really into it, and so are some of the crypto viewing team are as well. I don't know much about it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's more of a question about what do we do when people are willing to give up their humanness in exchange for technological enhancements or advancements.
Wow. Yeah.
As people doing remote viewing and really tapping into what humans are capable of in terms of non-local awareness and everything else, if people don't realize that we have this capacity, then what happens when they're willing to make all sorts of crazy trade-offs? Like right now, we're talking about presumably right now using your phones and people being tracked so they can tell who they're close to so they don't get a virus. But you know, the progressions of that are frightening. So I guess again, a global question, like what's the feeling and sense of people willing to make these kind of exchanges? And what are you really sacrificing?
I personally think that's really, really dangerous. The plonker politician over here, Tony Blair, recently came out with a comment saying, it was basically words to the effect of, he thought it was a great idea that bringing in more technological surveillance was a small price to pay. And I just shake my head at that fellow. It's, yeah, it's 1984 all over. Just throw away any form of freedom. It's not a good way to go. Not a good way to go at all.
I think anything that removes our ability to sense, however we sense, mentally, physically, and otherwise, is wrong. And so much technology through radiation and everything else removes all those senses and removes your ability to be able to go into a state where you can see. I went through part of that a while back. I moved into this place that had a big tower next to it. And they've got all kinds of, I don't know, stuff on there for radios, TVs, cell phones, you name it. And there's almost no life underneath that tower. And I know 3 people that died who lived next to that tower, and they all had cancer. And I know that that's possible for anybody, but it just seems like 3 people that live on the same side of the building that wound up with cancer is a little odd, you know, to me. But I live on my senses. I've been carrying my phone because of my health issues, but I prefer to use my gut, my feelings, hair. This is the Native American thing, is their hair. It helps them to sense what's going on around them. And I'm not sure what the question was for me, but I don't know a lot about my Native American heritage or how they feel about this stuff. I know that back in the day, they were very active in remote viewing, able to see things, sense things that most white people were not paying attention to. And I am so glad to see bigger communities like this coming together, because we need each other, and we need to remind each other that we all can do it. The ability is there. It just takes work to learn it. That's what I have to say.
Can I just say something about the Native American hair? This may interest you, because I heard a story that the Native Americans were hired to break code, or to speak code language in World War II. Nobody could break the code. And one of the things that happened, though, when they they had these psychic abilities as well, but they've made them cut their hair to join the military. And when they cut their hair, their abilities were severely hindered. They noticed they didn't have the same kind of acuity and ability to sense. So there is something to this hair. The Native Americans have really tuned into these details of how to be sensitive in the environment. You know, it's interesting.
Thanks, everyone else.
Sorry about that. The human body has energy that goes 8 feet from your body, and everyone around you has that same energy. People learn how to pull it in when they want to, or learn how to expand it so that they can see or feel more. But I can't remember what my point was now. Anyway, yeah, it's an interesting concept. I don't, you know, I have not noticed any added ability because of my hair, but I choose to keep it long. Because I think somewhere down the line, in the past, it has served me. My hair used to be almost down to my knees, and nobody could get away with anything. You couldn't sneak up on me. You know, it was when I cut it, a lot of that went away. So I don't know if that was my hair or just me. It could have been either way. So
I might be able to help there. As you can see, I have a lot of hair and it comes all the way down my back, and you know, but the reality is that
I'm just gonna laugh.
you know, the old Irish, we have everything. So I can just explain about the energy. So every one of us has, and we all know this, we have this electromagnetic field around us, and we have your chakras and all that. And these are all proved by science. So whatever I'm saying is there's a science behind it. So Dr. Bruce Lipton, I'm sure some of you are aware of him, will tell you that we receive information all the time from the universe, and we're giving out information all the time. And how do you know that? And I'm sure some of us have gone into a room or a bar or somewhere, and it's like Lynn Buchanan would say, the ambience exercise. You walk in somewhere and say, oh, I don't like the feel of this place, I'm going to walk out. Or you meet somebody for the very first time and you don't like them, or on the other hand, you can meet somebody for the first time and you love them.
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
So what's happening there is your energy field, which the healthier you are, the further it is out from your body, and the sicker you are, it comes in. And I
did not know that.
Yeah, I can.
See, I was going to a bar one time, and this really happened. This was very strong. It doesn't usually happen, but I really felt like not to go in there so strongly. I left my friends there and went home. Like, that is what you're talking about, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I've done experiments, and it's easily done to show you how you can make the energy bigger or smaller about yourself. It's all about your own process. So when you are trained at remote viewing or even psychic, it doesn't matter, and you become more aware. Again, Dr. Bruce Lipton will say that our conscious mind takes in 14,000 bits of information every second. But our subconscious mind in the same time takes in 11 million bits of information. So most of us are missing all this information. So when we relax and when we're doing remote viewing, or we just go into that alpha state, and most of the remote viewing is done in the alpha state, which is your daydreaming state. Even though you're wide awake, you don't have to close your eyes, and we all know that. You stand, talk, move around.
Yeah, it's a different brain state, theta. Sometimes it's theta, right? Yeah.
So once you're doing that, you're opening the portal for the information, giving it out or taking it back in. So
yeah, I've done some studies on this, and there's a thing in the brain called the Gamma Synchrony, And that gamma synchrony, it rises into the density matrix. And so you connect to the universe through your brain state. And I don't know why alpha and theta are better. That's an interesting question, but you seem to have better access to the raw data. Whereas if you're in beta, you're more conscious and it interferes with your sense. Would you agree?
Yeah, everybody will tell you that the alpha state is the state where you receive and give the information out.
Interesting.
But you can drive your car in the alpha state. It's like if you were driving from where Daz lives in Bath up to Scotland, and it's an 8-hour drive or whatever there is, and he's driving along. He doesn't always be thinking about driving. His mind wanders. So that's where your subconscious mind is working for you, you know. But when danger comes, the conscious mind jumps back in again. So that's what we're talking about, this daydreaming state, which is the alpha state. And that's when you're practicing your ideograms, if people practice ideograms or practice whatever they practice, eventually when you're doing it long enough, your conscious mind goes off and thinks of something else, but your subconscious keeps you practicing, you know, and that's been proven again through Lynn Buchanan. I've seen that.
So fascinating.
That's it.
In the crypto world, there's a coin actually called Theta. It's I believe it's going to be one of the biggest ones out there. Just throwing it out there since you guys are talking about the Theta state and remote viewing. Dick also mentioned that as soon as he heard the Theta coin, he looked into it. It's going to be huge in the crypto world out there. So if you don't have it, get on it. Just letting people know about that. Cool.
I had a question for, I don't know how to pronounce your name. V-O-I-V-I, is it Vovi? Oh, I can't hear you. You're too far from the microphone.
I say my name's actually Mark.
How do you pronounce it? I can't hear you. It's so mumbled I can't hear what you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Hang on.
No go.
Okay. Okay. I'll come back in a second.
No, there you go. Perfect.
There, that's perfect.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what was happening then. Yeah, my name's actually Mark. I can't change my profile name at the moment.
Okay, Mark. So you mentioned something that sounded very interesting. You said you've come across data that there's somehow a focused something or other that's affecting specific geographical areas. Oops, there you go, silent again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. I have, and it relates to certain areas of the globe, quite a little way in the future from now. But yes, it does. And linking into what we were just talking about, I was just mentioning that sometimes when you get a thought to, for example, you might read something else and it links into what you're already viewing or studying, or you'll pick up a book. I happen to just have a thought to pick up a book written in 1913. Just started flicking through because I'm quite a book person. And then the first paragraph I open, he's so relevant to the information that I'm getting from the viewing. So it's almost like these subconscious messages or whether we're receiving
synchronicity.
You know,
that's a synchronicity.
Well, with this focused beam, though, modifying or altering events at specific geographical locations, what did you find in your viewing on that? Mine
was about a power shift actually, and it was a significant disruption, basically involving east and west. trying not to say saying the same sort of thing as Daz without it being verifiable. But an onslaught basically for Europe and America from another body, if you like, another country involving other countries, a takeover of power, a total shift in power, and much more than that. And it really is not very pleasant, but really not very pleasant. So that's why I don't want to go into specific detail at the moment. But
okay.
Can I just say something? I just want to say to confirm, because the other day I found this old piece of music that I had liked, and it's a song about helicopters and planes and how I just can't stop thinking about helicopters and planes, and I was having visions of the sky full of helicopters and planes. So that happened to me like just 2 days ago. So I just want to say something's up. I think something is definitely up.
Okay, and I agree. So Mark, did you get a sense that this, like, I guess where I'm going, have you ever read Ingo's Starfire?
No, not yet. No, I've got it on order. Funnily enough, I actually ordered that on Amazon yesterday.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so Daz had mentioned in a Patreon talk that he had also then just started reading it. What I was asking is, since you haven't read the book, I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler, but not a full thing. He wrote a fiction story that in some sense I presume was either prophetic or kind of a hidden message, maybe from something he had learned at the SRI and his involvement with the program in general. But the concept there was that there were satellite type projects that were able to beam down in a certain region or population or whatever, basically alter behavior or trigger, if you will, aspects of people that are not so becoming. So is yours anything along the lines of that?
Yeah, I mean, it was without warning. That was a strange part. So without warning, and it was instant, which may suggest an alteration of state of mind on behalf of either party. It was almost like it wasn't planned, but it was instant. So that's the difficulty in trying to interpret this information, obviously.
Sure.
And then then because obviously Europe, there was an attempt on Europe, or if you like, a takeover. They then brought in the States, which is, you could almost say it's similar to, I'm not saying it's like World War II, but other countries get involved. But from the east side, looking east, Asian countries, for example, whether it's China and other countries that we may think were, loyal to us, weren't. For example, it involved Japan as well. Japan was involved, China was involved. It's a bit like an uprising, an eastern uprising onto the West. And then that's why I asked Daz early on in the conversation if there was any hint of a change of power, a change of world powers. Because I know we've got thoughts that the economy is going to change, and for example, fiat may be gone, etc., or replaced. But I'm getting much more information. Then, strangely enough, when I mentioned about the book, I picked up this book written in 1913, and the one page I opened straight away, following a paragraph, it said at the bottom, I have brought it down with me, it said at the bottom, and it will be certain that the yellow race will rule the world. We've heard that phrase before. We've all heard that phrase. But this was, as I say, written in 1913. It's a book regarding spiritual journeys after death. It was written in French originally. Very, very interesting book. It talks about other things. It talks about nothing to do with what I've viewed or experienced. It talks about
from 1913, 300 years in the future, there will be great well, France and the southern part of England will be falling into the sea, for example, things like that. Now, this is not a prophetic book, nothing to do with that. So if I push that away for a moment, the other part I was amazed at, there was so much information contained within this book that was relevant to a number of recent viewings, and I haven't picked up that book for, well, eight or 9 years. And I saw Daz speaking the other day, and I think I forgot which video it was, and Daz, I think it may have been in Ingo's book, and Daz turned around and said, "That's crazy, that is. I'm working on something at the moment. I picked up Ingo's book, and it's relevant to what I'm doing." And I just think I wonder where that push or that subconscious comes from to actually reach for that book and other things that are relevant to something that we're doing at the moment, if you're with me.
You know what? Here's what I think. Do you want to hear what I think? This is the weirdest thing, because I have thought about this. I think it came from the beginning of the universe. Yeah. From the beginning of the universe, that signal came.
It could. I mean, I don't know where it comes from. I think that's the thought, where the originator. But the information contained within is the book almost said, not verse for verse, because it was written very differently to how we talk today, because it was translated from French. It almost matched the viewing. That was the creepiest thing to me. So there's several viewings that are quite specific, quite shocking initially to me. I'd read that book 8 or 10 years ago. I'd forgotten the content of it. Certain things that came up in the viewing, then this thought to pick up the book, and the book matched almost, except for the way it's written, much of the content of the viewing, and that shocked me.
Yeah.
This book has sat on my bookcase for a very, very long time, you know, with all the others. I mean, there's a part that you can't see here, that, you know, the books all over the place here. So, yeah, and it raised that thought, but some of the content is very disturbing, you know, it is.
What would you say was the impulse or the impetus for you to suddenly order
good question.
Starfire?
That's a good question as well. I know Daz has been telling us, you know, and other people talk frequently about Ingo. I've only read things online, but I wanted to get deeper into who Ingo was, the real Ingo, understand him, understand his thoughts, listen to his teachings. So, but the impetus to actually order yesterday, hell, I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I find it interesting, and I'll tell you why, because you're the fourth person, including Daz. So Daz has been familiar with Ingo for a quarter of a century.
Yeah.
And apparently just started reading it. I talked to 2 other people besides yourself and Daz who just suddenly ordered Starfire and are looking at it. So I look at that as whatever, you know, but it's interesting. One thing.
Non-random zone.
So one thing though specific now without the book, just your viewing, and I fully understand your, I guess, ethics on not putting out what you feel might be goofy, but just strictly your viewing, this sense of created effects on geographical areas.
Yes.
What was the context of that, or what was the source or activator of that phenomena?
Well, the target was from my wife. So I don't know what she still hasn't actually, because we've been apart since then. Back today, so I haven't had a full debrief with her regarding that. But the why it actually came, I mean, it's difficult for me to say without the feedback, obviously, from my wife, to know to what she was asking me to view or asking me to look at. That's the difficulty. But the information matches almost everything else that I might see another video or read something else and it'll match the content. But the content basically is an uprising of East v West. Now, I didn't see that in, I thought whatever this is that we're going through, it could be a natural. If you're on the outside of this, if you're not open-minded like many of us are, this is just a virus. We're going to have a depression. Things are going to get better. A lot more of us see a lot more to this than that, an awful lot more. And I'm actually wondering, well, I never ever thought it would be a shift in power between two superpowers, if you like, and that's what I'm seeing. Hence the tentative questions slightly more towards Daz initially. I've got no way of verifying this, and I've not heard anybody else saying anything similar. I know there's a shift. I know there's a possible shift coming, but I didn't expect that. Did not expect that. But when I sit back and think about it, it makes sense. Yeah. Because it's a perfect opportunity for some major shifts, you know, to take place.
Can I say one more thing? Like along the lines of this idea of why would you reach for that book, and why did the four of you all choose to order that book? And this immediately to me, I've been studying, well, I looked into briefly the Human Consciousness Project. Have you heard of this? It's at Stanford University and Harvard, and they've placed these random number counters all over the world in centers of, you know, density, population density, as well as in centers of no population density. And they found correlations between large dramatic world events and non-random correlation of these number counters. So like, for instance, on 9/11, for 3 hours before the planes hit in New York, the number counters were correlating in a non-random distribution. And then for 3 days afterwards. And so I started wondering, like, can you see like a non-random zone? And I started seeing them like this, when four people buy the same book, you know, all who are connected. Why did they do that? And again, here's the theory about why the signal goes back to the beginning of the universe, because this is part of this ebb and flow of random and non-random, it seems to me. And so when people begin acting in correlation and some big event is coming, something's going on in some kind of consciousness field that we seem to be able to access, you know, with our V. But there are ways of measuring it, you know, also with, like, for instance, the correlations on these number counters when you know what you're looking for. And I just wondered if you'd ever noticed this, if anyone else had ever noticed the non-random zones, because I find that there's some interesting stuff going on. When I started seeing non-random John Vivenko, this is when I met all of you. Something's going on, right? When non-random things start happening. And, you know, this is just something new to me, and I've never been able to talk to anybody about this, but, you know, something to think about anyway.
I agree. Okay, so Mark, have you, when you're talking about wanting to get to know Ingo, have you ever read his online autobiography?
I've only flicked through it. I've only flicked through. I haven't read it in full depth. So the answer really is no. Because I tend to have a hungry mind, and I often, you know, read an awful lot of different things, and sometimes I don't read them in full depth as what I should, because of time to know.
If you read that book or his online autobiography, Remote Viewing: The Real Story, is that the one you're referring to as well?
Yeah.
I promise you, it will tell you so much and get you so far into his experience as a child, theosophy, other practices that he was involved in, his frustrations coming through ASPR. Unfortunately, he was going to finish it and it didn't get finished. But anybody that wants to really, you know, is probably his strongest self-expression. To Kiss Earth Goodbye is another one of a similar nature. But that one, you know, I hear a lot of people asking questions, and if they would just read that one remote viewing, the real story, you know, 60% of their questions about Ingo would fade away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's my next step, obviously. The book should arrive tomorrow, the book that I've ordered. But yes, there's a lot there that I think would be very useful to me.
I would love to see after you read, if I see you again next Friday or whatever, our state just announced another 30 days of lockdown. So I'll be available, and if this keeps going or we keep doing this on Friday, I would really love to hear, you know, the points of Starfire that rang true to you.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, cool. Thank you.
I'll report back on that. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Daz. Sorry.
Okay. On Russell, in connection to what you're discussing with Mark's RV as well, the coincidence was where I had read Starfire before, but it's just weird that I read it last weekend at the exact same time that we were getting this very strange RV stuff that also carried on. Sorry, I'm moving here. Carried on to this week as well, and to these sessions, and it does have a lot of, I would say, a lot of very solid connections to the plot line of the book Starfire.
No, you know, in Rose, right? You said you prefer Rose?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, Rose, I mean, you said it 3 or 4 times, and I could not agree. There is something going on. I don't know what it is, but
you can feel it, right?
yeah, I mean, the feel is probably a good description. So what I do is I guess collate data, or when somebody like Mark says, this showed in our viewing, and then someone, so I look for like a puzzle, little pieces, and I put them together. So when I hear Daz, you know, was rereading, and then Mark orders and all these things, so that Dean Radin entangled minds concept that you were talking about.
Interesting. Entangled minds. Never thought of
Yeah.
that.
So with that whole thing, the reason I, you know, pick around and listen and, oh, well, that person is having this or this person's having that, I find that integration of ideas fascinating. I don't know what's going on, but it's intriguing. There's a little bit of it that's unsettling. There's a strange part of it that's exciting in a way that
I'm having this weird reaction to the entangled minds because I'm like one of these autistic people that doesn't like their peas touching their carrots. So like having your mind touching someone else's mind is, I'm just going to have to get used to that. I never thought of that before. Just brand new concept. Whoa.
Yeah, well, the person that published a lot of that 9/11 random number generator was Dean Radin, who has that book. I wouldn't look at entangled necessarily as entrapped or like we're all caught in a fishnet.
Thanks for that. That's helpful.
It might be more of a network, very similar to routers or any of this.
I'm thinking a cloud. I'm thinking it may get an image of a cloud. It's
Yeah,
sort of like electron clouds. You know?
I don't know, but I wouldn't look at it as carrots touching peas. I think, you know, it's a bunch. It's a bunch of us as beings with minds that would we call non-local, that, you know, can network. So maybe not look at it as a negative. But anyway, so Mark, thank you very much.
Now I'm starting to think of doing a painting of that. Okay.
I would love to hear your results on any more viewing or your perception, or you know, the things that really kind of struck you in Starfire. That would be interesting. So
Okay, Russell, I'll report back next week. Thank you.
Okay, great. No, thank you.
I'm gonna lob some more questions in. Oh wait, let me mute something different. Okay, 3 questions. First, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Daz, do you have a good poker face? Because I've been watching you as everyone's been watching, asking these questions. That's the first question you don't actually have to answer. The second question is JJ threw in the chat a while ago that he was wondering about people's sense or feeling about the Pentagon release of the UFO videos. So let's discuss that. The third question is maybe something you guys can answer very quickly. I am trying to get him to participate in learning remote viewing with me, and he said I have to stop drinking wine. Do I have to? That's it.
I once did one of my best remote viewing sessions, drunk with vodka.
And your magazine commemorated to Ingo is called 8 Martinis.
Yeah, yeah. On the UFO thing, it's a hard question because I've been into UFO research for decades. And there was always a hope and a rumor that disclosure was going to be on its way, and it was a slow, gradual process that was being done through media and films and stuff. I think that the TTS people, the Shoot for the Stars people, Harry Pusoff and Tom DeLonge, have forced the hand of the government somewhat. And we all knew the video, and they released the video films, these 3 video films, a year ago or more, and we all knew they were real then. So I don't know why the government's taken so long to come through with it now. I think it's done it right now because everyone else is preoccupied with the virus. So it's kind of, you know, they just slipped it in there that there's the reality of the UFO situation, but no one's really taking much notice of it because we're all worried about dying. But I
So
think
you don't think this is going to impact what you were seeing?
Not what we were seeing, because remote viewers have been seeing UFOs and craft and aliens and on Earth and around Earth and everything for decades now. So I mean, it may do. Maybe there is something in effect where something's going on. You know, maybe they're doing it for a reason. We don't know, do we? They might have an ulterior motive. Maybe, I don't know. There are rumors that, you know, the reason why Trump wants to do a new space force is because there is going to be some kind of alien threat, and you know, there are people out there saying that the government's going to fake a UFO alien threat just to get us to do something else. So, you know, there's so much out there. It's hard to know what's going on, really. To be honest, there's lots and lots, and that's the problem with the UFO field is since the late 80s, it's been inundated with professional people that are professionally trained in disinformation. You know, they come forward as whistleblowers and whatnot, and they've confused it somewhat. So I don't know. We do seem to be reaching a point where information's coming out, but it's still not coming out as much as I know that they have. You know, when you look back at all the witnesses.
I'm wondering if there's some reason that the government feels pressure to release something to us. And
well, it's kind of hard because if you look at the history of the 3 videos they've released, when TTS did it a year ago, the American government got really pissy about it and said, "Oh, these aren't real," you know, and they put out all this stuff about they're not real. Alessandro shouldn't have released them. He had no reason to release them. He didn't work for us. He did work for us. These aren't real. They are real. So it's just been a real complicated process. To be honest, I think that there's a secret government that's a level bit above normal government operations that is controlling a UFO program. But I would say the people in that, there's probably, and you know, there is documentation that actually does validate this. I would say that, you know, that's a very small amount of people. You know, you're talking less than 100 people know what's going on. And then when you look at the tear down loadout, you've got several million people that work at various levels of government and that don't really know what's going on. So because it's all compartmentalized, they just don't know what the real situation is. And that's why we've got this infighting that's going on with, should we release it, shouldn't we release it, and so on. But I don't know what the real agenda is behind it. or anything, and I think we see snippets of it as remote viewers, but because we're all working part-time and in an amateur basis, you know, we're not sat in a room with 20 million for 6 months with some of the top viewers working on it. We've only got a fragmented picture. But yeah, it seems like stuff's happening, but to what end I can't tell you because I haven't looked at it RV-wise. That's what I can say.
Alexis is one possible contributing factor, and there was a couple articles out about it maybe 3 months ago. There was a huge revolt inside the Navy by the pilots that actually caused the Navy to completely rewrite its reporting procedures, so there was no longer the threat of your career being destroyed. I think a lot of people got fed up with keeping this to themselves. So if you Google, you know, just something like Navy revises reporting, you might start to stumble on a series of those articles, but they sounded very perturbed by how they had been suppressed for so long, and they got fed up, and they kind of declared enough was enough.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I got a question here that's been up a couple of times and I haven't answered it. So, and it's from Mike, and he asked, "What is the average RV team in a project? 3, 4, or more? Is there such a thing as too many or not enough? Do you need a project manager?" And so on. It's a good question, but it's a long question or a long answer. It depends on the project and how much the client wants to pay, to be honest. You know, because the viewers you've got to pay. 4 is good. You know, it's good to have 4 remote viewers or more. I have had as many as 10, but if you can imagine, if you're doing a report for a client and you have 10 remote viewers and each one of those produces 20 pages of information, that's a lot of information you have to go for and then put in a report. So the more viewers you have in a work in a project, that means the more work you have to do as a project manager, or someone has to do as a project manager. So 4 viewers, the report would probably be about 50 to 60 pages. If you have 10 viewers working a project, you'd probably be doing a 200-page report for the client. And you know, if you can imagine the man hours that would go into that. The hidden thing about remote viewing is that project managers of note are probably a very undervalued skill within remote viewing. It's not taught. It's something that generally people have to pick up on their own or bring in from their work life. There's not many of them about, which is good. So you know, project managers should be paid more than anyone else on the project, really, because they do more work. Then I know the remote viewers, that's essentially the talent, but I would say a project manager managing 10 remote viewers would do 6 times more work than the remote viewers would do.
I think that was probably well illustrated in Gail's presentation the other day. She nailed it. Effectively, it gave you a whole a much better impression of the big picture behind what goes on. And like you say, Daz, you know, so the viewers go in, they do their bit, but then that has to be sorted out and disseminated, and you know, then you've got research and various other things going on. So absolutely.
There's always a lot of on a small to medium scale project. There's a huge amount of that. Just imagine it. The admin alone for 10 remote viewers. You know, so you're talking to the client, you get the client organized. You know, there's a few hours work there, and sometimes you have to teach them how to try to task a target because you know they want to ask like 90 questions in one go. And we'll get you to get all the detail on them. So you're trying to manage the expectations of the client and trying to get a solid target. And then you're having conversations by email or whatever with 10 or so remote viewers to say, do you want to work this? Do you want to work this? Do you want to work this? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. You're managing them. You set the target. You send it out to them. You have to wait for them all to send their data to you. And to be honest, you know, there are a lot of remote viewers out there that work really badly, so they won't type up their remote viewing sessions. Their handwriting's hard to read. Sometimes you have to retest him on target. So there's all this back and forth, back and forth. So you may end up with, 200-300 sheets of paper for remote viewers. You have to sit down and then analyze to see if that data then matches what the client wants to know about the target. If it does, you then have to find some way to compile that in a report, maybe database it, maybe, either summarize the data, because you can't really give the raw data from a CRV sessions to a client because they don't know what all the acronyms or anything mean. So you have to make it into a nice, palatable report that suits the needs they want. And it literally, can be in some cases 100, 200 hours worth of work putting a report together.
Question. So what if you streamlined the analysis and had a Zoom with all the viewers, and everyone could contribute to the analysis, or is that wrong because you can't analyze your own stuff?
Yeah, you tend not to let remote viewers analyze their own data.
Analyze their own stuff. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can work that way, and I have done that in some cases in the past. But you can't really take what you talk about in a Zoom meeting and then put that down on paper very easily.
No, and the thing is, like, as I analyzed the data just from this last exercise, the more I looked at it, the more I got that I realized I had seen, so it helped me to learn how to see better the next time.
Yeah.
So analyzing your own data is not necessarily great for the project, but it's good for the viewers, I think, and in my opinion, anyway.
I do find it useful to ask the viewer's opinion on things because they're obviously the person, they're the witness that was closest to the event or target. And I do get annoyed when I'm working as a viewer for projects if the person who does the analysis comes up with all these really strange conclusions based on my data, but without asking me if their interpretation is correct.
Right.
Most of them, and that's happened in a majority of cases with the Farsight projects. The conclusions and things comes up is the end go for the project. I would say would vary considerably differently than what I felt when I was doing the viewing.
Well, I wonder, as a writer, back when I was studying, for instance, I was studying deconstructionism and postmodernism in literature, and the authors were talking about how the piece of work does not belong to the author anymore once they've sort of put it out in the world. They can't lay claim to the interpretation of their own work, even the work they wrote. It becomes like free game for anybody to interpret however they want. And that's a bit of an obstacle to get over as an artist. But once you get over that and really accept the fact that it's the truth, that every piece of literature, or piece of art has just infinite, interpretations and possibilities for meaning, which is actually a cool thing. It sort of opens you up more, for the possibilities of remote viewing and allow you to see things you might not have thought you could see. I never thought that I could go and ride on Voyager 2. Like, it just never occurred to me that I would put myself in that spot if I was going to look at it even. And so I was really surprised to find myself where I found myself. So that's what I'm talking about, like having to sort of let go. That's a very Buddhist idea, I guess, of what you want the thing to mean or what it's going to signify, and just allow it, to be.
Yeah, well, that's why this CRV controlled remote viewing approach is good, because over time it teaches you to put all that to a side and just record the raw data.
The data, exactly.
Yeah. Any last things anyone want to say or talk about? Because it's 2.5 hours now, so getting late here for me. Already got.
Daz, I'd like to say something. It's really nice that some of the information and projects that you have done, you've been sharing, especially on YouTube. It's really a pleasure to watch that. I really appreciate that, so thank you.
No worries. Thanks. And yeah, thanks for that. It's great to get feedback. Yeah, I mean, it makes it all worthwhile when you're kind of getting information out and helping people develop. Because when I started this, there was nothing.
Mm.
And you're making yourself really vulnerable. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Deborah, please.
Well, I just say I appreciate the fact that you're willing to make yourself so vulnerable and you know, put your process out there for people to see, because that's not easy to do. You know, it's really hard to do, and to let people have a look at that's a very private thing to me when you're doing remote viewing, kind of intimate. So I don't know if I could put my viewings up on YouTube personally, right? So I appreciate that you do that.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
And I would like to say a thank you to Russell. We last spoke. Well, we spoke for the first time last week, and then we had a chat on Sunday. Thank you for that video that you posted with Hal when he loses his poker face, as you put it. That was cracking, mate. That was lovely. Have you seen that one, Daz?
Yeah.
The postscript interview, and it's quite telling, isn't it? It's and also his phrase. Just he says to, I think his mate's name who's interviewed is John. Yeah, we're not going to talk about them, John.
Well, let me do something a second here. I'm going to pause the recording. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask a question about Project 8200.
That'll be more Russell's book on that. I know a little bit about it, but he's the expert on that one.
So Mark touched on it briefly earlier about a grid system or areas on the Earth that we're monitoring people or controlling minds. Has anyone sort of linked the grid system that they're talking about to Elon Musk's 40,000 satellite grid system?
Actually, there is kind of a. Do you mind, Daz?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Daz and I just did a podcast with 6 Sense Media. Did you happen to see that, Martin?
No.
Okay, I'll put the link to it in the.
That was interesting.
Oh, thank you, Rose. I'll put the link to that in the messages here before you go. That will give you a broad spectrum. You know, Pat Price initiated that. He said that they have some technology that he indicated could provide motor control of humans. Now, I take that as a little bit excessive. I think you could call it influence rather than control. We do have free will, we do have volition, we do have determination. People who are more in that, you know, category that derogatorily gets called sheeple, where they just kind of go along with the drone of being a good human, they might be more susceptible and dramatize or act out those impressions. But people who are determined and intent on being free, I don't think they can be controlled. Let's see if Daz has anything to add to that. And I will actually pull up a quick screenshot while Daz is answering the rest of your question that will make a direct link, how shall I say, a possible direct link to Elon Musk. So let me find that in my files and then I'll share it when I find it.
Okay, thanks.
All I can add right now is that the last, and it goes on to what we were talking about earlier, really, if you were here when we were talking about Mark and stuff, is that the last 4 or 5 months, some of the remote viewing we've got through crypto viewing is indicating devices that transmit that might have some mind control or other kind of technologies about them that are on planet and above planet. And we have even had some of the data that does look like it's the look of the Elon Musk satellites moving through space and stuff, but it's all unverifiable at this stage, and we don't really know what it's saying or what it's trying to conclude, but we are getting data that kind of indicates all this stuff. And it's just weird that all this stuff, and you know what we talking about, what Mark was talking about.
May I
it's all coming through at the same time.
In terms of this mind control, it's very interesting because I've been seeing in the traffic analysis that I do, it's more in terms of mind control as sort of a marketing, advertising, bombardment through the internet kind of mind control. So it's the media that you're allowing through your eyeballs to the back of your brain that you're letting them, you know, in these invasive influences through the internet, through the media, more than sort of in the sky or waves like that. It's more of they're using psychology, but it's a keyword. It's a kind of mechanistic way of manipulating people's thoughts, more mechanistic from a language standpoint than sort of persuasive, you know? So programming people.
Well, Ingo's actual, and Daz can confirm this, I can't go into the source of this data, but he can confirm that it's accurate. Ingo had a very deep concern about mass mind control that effectively would probably be conducted through microwaves as opposed to a mechanistic, if you will.
Yeah. Well, Stuart Hemmerle's project is using microwave helmets to affect the gamma synchrony, and they're finding, he says they're finding results for chronic pain and depression by putting certain frequencies of microwaves through your brain. They affect the microtubules that create the gamma synchronies. And so, you know, there's credence to that for sure, right?
Sure, and it's going to be, you know, a double-edged sword. Yeah, it can be used to heal, it can be used for all these beautiful things, but given into the hands of the wrong people. Hey, let me jump back over to Martin for a minute. And Martin, I'm going to do a screen share and let you take a look at the question and see what you think of this, okay? I'll explain it as soon as it comes up. Let's see, where is it? Oh, okay. Goodness. Okay, can you see that, Martin?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a drawing that Joe McMoneagle did in 1982 about this system that very much was based on some form of broadcast. So if you look around the equator, you see what he calls a string of beads. So in 1982, the transcript that this sketch came from, he said it's not fully active yet. Impression that it's going to be full active or full-time active sometime in the future. And then look at the newspaper quote, Elon Musk says SpaceX fixing brightness of Starlink after they appear as a string of pearls. So Joe had string of beads in 1982, and Elon's project is being called a string of pearls.
That's amazing.
So there's actually a little more correspondence. I'll point it out roughly. If you look where at the base of this this triangulation where he says single target sites,
yeah,
those all correspond to underground bases that Mel Riley and a couple of others, actually 8 or 9 others, discovered in their practice sessions. It was never officially tasked. But when you look at the map and you look at the location of 3 of the bases, they make a triangle like that with the apex of it pretty much above the equator.
Yeah.
Could any of that be CERN or HARP?
Well, when you look at the Mount Zeal, what's called the Australian HARP or Pine Gap is actually close to the mountain. And then when you look at Mount Hayes, underground base or alleged underground base, HARP, Alaska HARP is also close to that.
Right.
So 2 TV shows have covered this. One is called Missing in Alaska. They decided to take a look at Mount Hayes, and they got some really interesting footage. They had 4 trail cams set up, 1 failed, 3 worked, and there is something doing some interesting maneuvers directly above Mount Hayes. And then Lori Williams for those not familiar with her, she was trained by Lynn Buchanan and has a great history of both instruction and session product. She was asked to do a show called the Alaska Triangle. What they have found is if you do this triangle, Mount Hayes is in the dead center of it.
Yep.
So why are a bunch of people, like extraordinary numbers of people going missing? And why are they using the old Bermuda Triangle analogy of things going missing with Mount Hayes? So when Lori did her session, she got to a point where she said out loud while they were recording it, I'm getting a little concerned about this making it out to the public, what she was discovering.
Well, I know that the government or somebody in the government keeps claiming that the Alaska HAARP station is no longer active, but I know that to be untrue. My father, he knew a lot of people. He knew a lot of people that were down at the HAARP station, and I've been there. We went on a trip, and he pulled in there one day to do some things, and we asked what it was, and he said, well, it's kind of like radar, or not radar, but kind of like satellite, but it works differently. It works from the ground up or the ground out. You can control all kinds of stuff with HAARP, and now there's CERN, which is similar.
Yeah, with this show, the one Missy in Alaska, the indication was that HAARP is still active. In fact, they had some what I would call significant disturbance or stuff that would make me hang on to the armrest of the, was it an airplane or a helicopter? But they had some equipment disturbance, electronics, when they got right toward the actual field of antennas. And then one guy, when they were on foot, got hit with some kind of nausea and things that just literally put him down on the dirt road. So if you look, one is History Channel and I think one is Travel Channel, but both of those episodes on Mount Hayes, which corresponds to one of those three base legs on that triangulation Joe McMoneagle did with the string of beads or string of pearls. So Martin, did that help your question?
Yeah, I mean, part of me does wonder whether this Elon Musk, you know, he originally, I think he wanted what, 12,000 satellites, and I think now he's asking for 40,000 to form this grid.
I think it's projected to be 40,000, which is frightening.
Yeah, and
we don't need
it
that.
is, and I do wonder whether it's linked with 5G as well, like the two will link together. I don't know.
Well, wouldn't, I would say that actual physical control of the human body would take a lot more, maybe the RFID chip is involved, I don't know, but I think it would take a lot more than most people realize, because even under strong hypnosis, really, really deep hypnosis, you can break that. It is your will that can snap the connection between you and the hypnotist. You can break that. You can come right out of your trance.
Yeah, and I agree, but they also,
yes, you can, exactly.
they have actually deployed over in the Middle East situation over the last 20 years, weaponry, and then the first deployment of the United States, I believe, was a Republican convention in whatever year that was, 2000, where they have microwave weapons on top of a vehicle that you can't break. It
Right.
makes your skin feel like you're burning, or they can make you vomit, they can make you urinate on yourself, they can make you have distressed emotions.
These
So
non-lethal weapons.
It just depends on the strength that they're using at the time. They can put you down on the ground just quick.
right.
Yeah, I know what
Now,
you're talking about.
in Joe McMoneagle's technical descriptions of Mount Hayes, one of the reasons this 5G, you know, I'll call it conspiracy, and I don't want to offend anybody that believes in it. 5G, the problem with it has very short broadcast. That's why they're going to have antennas, you know, every other block and numerous other aspects. But when Joe McMoneagle described, he said extremely low frequency, and modulated into that are other frequencies. So when they go to communicate with submarines across the globe, they use very, 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 like these wavelengths are like 7 seconds from peak to peak. Whereas I don't even know how fast and how short the 5G thing is. So if they create a conductive wave on that extremely low frequency and then modulate other frequencies, that would make more sense than, you know, what everybody's getting wound up about regarding 5G right now.
Right.
So I do have a question, Russ, because you put me onto a link about Chris Evans. Is it Chris Evans? He's married to Erica Lukes. The guy apparently worked out at Skinwalker.
Yes, that came from Angela Thompson Smith. That actually blew my mind. I had been told by a very reliable source that team members of NIDS had been followed home and harassed with poltergeist activity, which was like a little disturbing. So that video of him, who I'd never heard of before until I saw it on Angela's MindWise Facebook page, right at 13 minutes into that, he says it clear as day, and it literally confirms what I was told, that he and other team members were harassed with this poltergeist activity that followed them from the ranch, the Skinwalker Ranch, and that some of it's still going on today in their lives.
Okay, now the reason I actually bring it up and where this actually differs, Erica Lukes is a name I've seen on various documentaries. Her face pops up. I don't know who she is. I have no idea who she is. But from that podcast thing that she did that you put me onto, I just tracked everything that she did, and YouTube just played it one after the other, after the other, after the other. And her whole thing, she's actually, it seems, is married to this particular guy, Chris Evans, who apparently worked at Skinwalker. And the consensus that they seem to have is that there's not so much paranormal activity, but there seems to be what's the phrase? Non-lethal weapons testing, being that these people are actually being exposed to various forms of radiation and various other bits, which has gone completely off what I thought Skinwalker may have been. And
but in that interview,
it's quite
he
interesting.
talked about entities, and he emphasized entities. I'm not qualified in a technical sense about weapons testing. I'm also biased. I have my opinion of it, and I'm willing to change it, but not easily. Tonight, in fact, that what's her name, Erica Lukes? She's interviewing Angela Thompson Smith on a radio show. So if you know Angela, either go to her personal page or her MindWise page, and then you can find the link. So she's going to be interviewed. That what's going on there at Skinwalker is technological, then would kind of negate maybe 400 years of native lore.
Well, this is what the Erica Lukes thing suggests, that whole suggestion that it's been going on for hundreds of years is incorrect.
No, you can find the petroglyphs that can be carbon dated or whatever. So unless they said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to go around and, you know, etch into 20,000 rock formations these particular figures and symbols, and then be able to do it in such a way that an archaeologist thinks it happened 400 years ago. So like I said, I have no interest in being contentious. I have a strong opinion.
No.
I just think the indigenous lore, numerous other factors would be indicative.
Oh, trust me, I would actually love to think that it's something that's been going on for a hell of a long time. It was just that, having never heard of Erica Lukes, I just played through a whole playlist, and this thing became recurring where the scientists who are involved in NIDS and BAS and so on, the key guys like Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, for example, were never actually on site. It brings together a whole. I don't know. It's one of these rabbit holes. You can. For me, listening to Erica Lukes became a rabbit hole within itself. It just, oh bloody hell, where the hell is this shit going?
Right. I've confirmed actually with Eric. I don't know him, not any, but I kind of semi-begged him in Facebook. I think it was Daz's Facebook forum to just respond to one private message, and it was essentially, "Were you there for 6 years?" It seems indicative that he was there. How I can't say. But have you seen the new TV show on
it? The second episode has just aired in the UK, which I've recorded, so I'll probably catch up with that the next day or so.
By the time you get to by the time you get to the 4th episode, there's stuff there that, I mean, if I were a skeptic, would be convincing enough that I would open at least one eye. They delayed this week's show for some reason, and then the next episode won't be till next week. But there's a thoroughness to what they're doing. So the 3rd and 4th episode, but particularly the 4th, man, it's pretty solid data, in my opinion.
Okay. I'm not convinced, to be honest.
You're not, Daz?
No, I've seen all 4 episodes so far, and I think the science is pretty bad. What they're doing, it's
really?
I think it's pretty amateur.
So the notion that signal is stronger up high and diminishing towards the ground, you don't buy that one?
Possibly, but all science needs more than one experiment to replicate it and stuff. So they needed it once. They needed it once. It's all done in such a theatrical way.
It is very theatrical. It's very sort of Curse of Oak Island.
Yeah.
Sort of,
That's detracting for sure, but then
Absolutely.
That's TV. But no, I'd be interested,
the UFO they caught on the latest episode was quite interesting. The UFO they caught on camera whilst they were doing experiments.
I've not seen that. Don't tell me about that.
Oh. No, I'm not a scientist, so that kind of area, is a weakness for me. So if you ever see something blatant or whatever, private message me or bring it up here again. I've bought into it, but then again, like I said, I have some bias on it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got Angela, because Angela did RV on it. You know that, don't you?
She just sent me that session.
Yeah, I've got all that work as well, so I've seen all that. And it's in the what's the guy's name? The guy that did the Lazar video. He took Robbie Williams out there.
Oh, Jeremy Corbell, is that the one?
Yeah, they went out there and they all spent the night there with Robbie Williams, the pop star and stuff. That's all on video as well on YouTube and stuff.
Well, one thing that I did find interesting on the skeptical side, and this happened in person, I was at the 2018 IRVA, and George Knapp was there, as was his videographer for the news. So Paul was there, and Paul said, "Hey, Russell, come over. Have you ever met George Knapp?" So we're talking, and then as I usually do, I try to pick brains. So I said, "Can I ask you a couple of questions? I know I just met you." And he said, "I might say no, but or I might not answer them, but go ahead." So I asked him point blank, I said, "Have you ever personally, yourself, witnessed," and later I talked more to his videographer, he said, "No. It was like if I was there, it happened over here. And if I was over there, it happened over here." So he said for, 19 years or whatever, that Bigelow had asked him not to release any of his stuff till whatever the sale in 2016. So George and his videographer said they themselves had not had a personal experience.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see a proper RV blind project done on it, to be honest. And what I would do is I would get the remote viewers to actually look at some of the good sightings, because they have some good UFO or light sightings actually recorded on video. So I would use that as the jumping off point, because it's got good feedback, and get the viewers to have a look see. But I don't know at this stage. It's I think there's a lot of myth involved, and I think because this new TV series and the fact that they've registered Skinwalker Ranch as a brand, and it looks like they're going to start doing a series all the time and make money off it and stuff. I'm a bit, I don't know. It's a bit like the Curse of Oak Island.
Can I get a T-shirt, man? Can I get a T-shirt?
I'm a bit worried that it's going down that entertainment route, to be honest. It's, you know, it's like some of the stuff that alleged scientist is doing and stuff is like, you know, they found that room and then they knocked the wall through, but, you know, they do it in such an ad hoc amateur way that, you know, if there was anything on the floor or the dust from the wall that they're drilling through was interfering with the fragments on, you know, it's just, I just see it doing it in such a bad way, and I'm thinking,
yeah.
Are you cringing when you watch it?
I am. When I watched The Curse of Oak Island as well, and you know, you see the guy go out with his metal detector, and they find a bit of metal. And I'm thinking, I've seen this guy do this for 3 years. Why haven't they divided the island up into squares, and he systematically did the whole island 1 square at a time and found all this stuff? You know, why did they just go to random locations on the beach and stuff and say, "Oh, we'll try it over here for a change"? It's just not scientific enough for me. It just doesn't make
Someone
sense.
said beautifully the other day that we're in season 8, and for 8 years we've been watching people dig holes in the ground.
Yeah.
Just want to know.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think there's probably something into the Skinwalker, but I'm not convinced at this stage. But there again, you know, we know that they're holding massive amounts of information back that has never been released. So
yeah.
I part of me also thinks that there's certainly links with Skinwalker, and also on our side, Daz, with Rendlesham Forest. Was it Kit Green who helped? John Burroughs had. You guys probably know the name John Burroughs.
Yeah. One of the guys from the Light. He was the one that had the medical problems.
All the medical problem, and then Kit Green sort of came in and said, "Okay, what you need to do is this, this, and this."
Because he wasn't allowed to get his medical records.
There are lots of these sort of crossover points I'm finding between the whole Skinwalker thing and obviously the people involved. There's this, it's this peculiar mesh.
The weird thing is, most the instances of strange behaviour has always happened on areas in America which was tribal land at one point, and which is what that area is. You know, when you look back at the alleged alien bases or alleged bases in America, you know, they're allegedly on ex-tribal land and stuff as well. So there is a precedent there, but you know, who knows? It's interesting. It's entertaining. And I don't like, you know, it's just so cheap to me. It's like the Dragon guy just winds me up. You know, it's like, let's call Dragon. You get him on the phone. He's walking around with his gun. He's like,
I haven't seen this bit yet. Oh no, you're making this shitness sound horrible. I'm not sure I want to see it.
Now I'm gonna have to plug my ears and go la 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 la.
It's like, let's get the boss on the phone. You know, they get the boss on the phone. He's like, oh my God, did that really happen? I'll be straight there. It's just so cheap.
The one that I have to concur with was when they said, "What's in the caves?"
Yeah.
And you're like, is it going to be a skull, or is it going to be like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where something comes out and melts? And then
you got to let. I'm about to watch the episode. That I've got that recorded. I've got to see that tomorrow.
I was getting all excited. I was like, "Oh my God, they got something good!" And then they opened the case, and I was like, "Oh."
What is it?
So they opened it, and it was full of they opened it and it was full of Bitcoin. There you go.
It's full of what?
I won't ruin it. I won't ruin it for you.
I wish it was full of Bitcoin.
Hilarious.
All right, hey Daz, I've got to pop off. Cynthia, Jules.
Yeah, we'll stop there because it's been 3 hours.
JJ, I'd like to say hello to all of you. Thank you, everybody. I love these, and if there's any reason to have a lockdown, this was it.
That was fun.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see y'all. We'll see y'all later.
Yeah, see you all again next week. You all have a good weekend, and all the guys listening as well.
Lovely.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye from Colorado.
Bye, everyone.